Good afternoon. The special meeting of the City Commission for Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 will come to order. Please join me in silencing your cell phones. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Cleveland.
Here.
Vice Mayor Perrine.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Thank you.
It goes without saying the gravity of tonight's meeting is perhaps the most important decision this commission will make this year, certainly the most long-lasting. I would like to thank the panel for getting this all started, and the citizens that are here in the room like you to have the opportunity to speak. So we'll open public participation and approach the podium similar to our regular meetings, and you'll have 3 minutes. It's a monologue on your part. If you'd like to speak on this particular topic, which is selecting the firm that will do the search for our next city manager, please come forward and you will be heard at this time. Seeing none, public participation is now closed. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to review the presentations outlined by 4 selected search firms regarding the city manager recruitment and selecting 1 firm to proceed. 9 firms responded to the RFP. The review committee ranked the firms and invited the top 4 to this special meeting. The presentations will be no longer than 15 minutes each, with an additional 15 minutes for the commission to ask questions, the total of 30 minutes for each firm. Do the math quickly, we're going to be here for a while. So before we invite our first member to come up and present, are there any questions or any comments? Maybe Heather, do you want to set this up? And do you have any remarks for us to kind of ponder while we're going forward?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So this is our meeting for you to select your executive search firm to select our city manager, as you said. We'll have 4 presentations this evening, and we've asked them to keep it as a brief overview. You've been able to see their proposals that were available publicly. This will be your time to really dig deep on what you're looking for from these firms. So ask your pointed questions that you need your answers to and make sure that you get those answers. And then once the presentations are finished, you'll want to take some time and discuss amongst yourselves and see where you fit as a whole as to what you're really looking for and which firm will be able to satisfy your needs for those.
Great. Any questions of the HR director? Just wanted to thank, on top of your day job, both the assistant city attorney and the police chief for doing this on top of that. This is a huge deal, and I'm grateful for your work. One question for Director Kidd and the rest of the panel. Were any of the references of any of the 4 candidates that you selected as the top 4, did you call or contact any of the references?
No. As part of the RFP process, we wouldn't do that.
Okay, good enough. Thank you very much. Okay, with that said, our first presenter is Colin Basinger from Basinger and Associates. So happy to have him escorted in at this time without objection. Okay, let's do that.
So I've initiated that. We'll let him get down here.
Very good. While we're waiting, the protocol for selection after we've heard them all is not been dictated in any way. So it'll be a bit of a free form for how we go to pick, unlike our boards where the city clerk hands out, we do nominations and hands out voting sheets. I don't think we have any protocol established. So we'll probably invent that as we go. So Heather, I'm assuming the holding tank was in Edgewater.
It's close, it's upstairs, so it'll take
No
them just a
sweat.
second to get down here.
No problem.
He's locked in the stairwell.
It's possible. Now I have one upstairs and one downstairs. We should be good to get him here quickly.
No worries. I see him at the door now.
Great.
Here he comes.
Hello, Mr. Bissinger. Thank you for coming.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. As you probably know, I live down the road in Daytona Beach Shores, and so we spend some time down here, shall we say. You've got some great opportunities for dining and other things here, so.
Daytona Beach
anyway,
Shores is a great town. Mayor Miller has a great operation up there.
It does. So, anyway, my name is Colin Benziger. I am the owner and principal of Colin Benziger and Associates. We are a local government recruiting firm. That's all we do. That specializes, quite frankly, in Florida. I started this business about, it'll be 26 years in March, started from scratch. And at the time I was a single dad, so first few years I did everything in Florida because I wanted to be home when my kids either went to bed or when they got up, and preferably for both. So at the time I thought I had a talent for picking people, and also felt that if I delivered a first-class product and delivered first-class customer service with both the elected officials and the candidates, because the candidates are a very important part of this process, that I would be successful. And, you know, fast forward 26 years later, we've done, I can't remember the exact number offhand, but it's about 70 out of the last 220 searches. It's about 65% where a Florida city or county has selected a recruiter. And that's about twice as many as all the other firms combined. So I guess we've done all right. What we offer is a problem-free search. We have an extraordinary ability to find the right person for the job. I used to tell people that whether it's a public works director or the second baseman on my softball team, I always seem to be able to get the right person. So we've had some really notable successes. A couple of our early finds were Brian Hill. He's currently the county manager, or actually they call it something else, like the county executive in Fairfax County, Virginia. Population 1.4 million. And then T.C. Broadnax is now the city manager in Dallas, Texas. We didn't place them in either place, but we placed them in their prior jobs. What we offer again is a problem-free search. It's a turnkey search, so that we're not going to be a burden on your staff. And we specialize in customer service. You'll have you have my cell phone number. You've got my card in that presentation, and I tell people I work 24/6, 313. I like to take Sundays off. So, but if you need me, you can reach me. Let's see.
Yeah, do you need any assistance on the slide work? And I'm assuming that Director Kidd gave you the ground rules, so we got 15 minutes of your presentation. You'll get a yellow light at 5 minutes to go, and then we'll have 15 minutes of questions.
And this is great. I mean, I can see it right here. So our focus is on local government positions. That's really all we do. cities, counties, special districts. Our orientation is towards the client. We really want to serve you. Again, we do keep the candidates informed because the last thing you want to do is suddenly tell a candidate that the interviews are such and such a day, and he says, oh gosh, I didn't know that. So we set a schedule right up front, set in stone, and live by it. We're responsive. You'll get a call back from us if we're not able to pick up the phone when you call. We're going to tailor our approach to fit New Smyrna Beach and what you're looking for. We're also, this is more than just a job for us, it's an avocation, so that, as you can imagine, we see a lot of cities and counties, governments, and so if you have something come up in your city that you've never seen before, that you'd like some advice on, we probably have seen it somewhere else. Give us a call, and we'll talk to you about it, and at least be able to direct you to somebody that can provide some information. We're reliable. We do what we say, and we say what we do and do what we say. We've never missed a project milestone, and we've never asked a client for more money than what we originally quoted. We feel like we are the experts, and as such, there should be no such thing as unforeseen circumstances. There have been times when we probably deserved it, but I'd rather make the statement that we have never done that. We're thorough, and I'll talk about our background checks. It's one of the things we're really known for. The communication and trust between us and the candidates, as well as our clients, are important to us, and we're results-oriented. Our actual process is to, first of all, start with you, meeting with each one of you personally, one-on-one, to talk about the job, about the kind of person you're looking for, about the challenges you want this person to address, and what makes New Smyrna Beach a great place to live, work, and play, and be the city manager. That's the hook, so to speak. Once we've got that information together, and we would like to talk to your staff, some elected bodies don't want us to, but we'd like to talk to your staff and get them their input as well. It's kind of like painting a picture. The more colors we have, the better the picture will be. So, and if you'd like us to talk to some residents, we'd love to do that. One of the things we do that I don't think anybody else does is we do a salary survey and compensation survey for all the managers, city managers in Florida every year. And so one of the things what that means is we can give you a recommendation on what's a reasonable salary to pay, and we can back it up with the data. The recruitment profile that we will develop based on our conversations with you is a key document. It's the, I guess I should move over to the next slide. That's kind of a map of our process. But the document really kind of covers everything you'd want to know about New Smyrna Beach. It's probably overkill, but it's divided into sections. And our goal is to be so thorough that a candidate picking that brochure up can see everything there is that they might want to know to make a preliminary decision on whether or not they want to apply to be your city manager. The reason we do that is I don't want them putting the thing aside, seeing it, put it aside, come back to it 3 weeks later and realize they've missed the deadline. I want them to be able to have every possible bit of information they might want to have so they can make a preliminary decision. Once we get the brochure done, and we, of course, we'll give you a chance to review it, we'll put it out in the marketplace, so to speak, and let candidates know about the opportunity through a number of means. The first, of course, and foremost is networking. We are executive recruiters. The second is advertising. You're always going to pick up a few candidates from advertising. You know, you can reach a certain number of people through networking, but you're not going to reach the whole industry. And then we have an email list of about 13,400 people that are professionals in local government I think probably anybody who has an interest in having a job in Florida is on it because we do so much work here. So we'll send it out to them, and then of course we'll consult prior recruitments we've done and see if there's anybody that fits. Once we've done that, we'll normally allow 3, sometimes 4 weeks to let the job percolate through the industry. Our email list is in many ways the key because it can, if somebody sees it in California, sees the job, but they remember they went to school with somebody who grew up in North Florida or this part of Florida, they'll just forward it to them. And that's one of the ways we build the enthusiasm and get the word out. It's through word of mouth, and if they'll do our advertising for us, so much the better. Once we've closed the job, then I'll sit down with all of the resumes. One of my staff members will also sit down with them, possibly 2. We'll go through them and pick out the people we think are the best candidates. Now, having done this for almost 26 years, I know a lot of people in the industry, and I know a lot of people in Florida. So I'll know some of the candidates that have applied. There'll be some that I don't know. What I'll do is I'll call each of the candidates, and I'm picking out maybe 10 or 12 to look at. Each of the ones that I don't know, of course, I'll also talk to the ones I do know, but the ones I don't know, I'll give them the Collin test. And that's basically a series of about 7 or 8 questions that I ask that tell me if I really think they know what they're doing, if they really are good managers. You know, paper's paper. And it's not somebody, as I say, often the people who do the best resumes are the people that have the most experience applying for jobs. And they're probably not who you want to hire. You want the person that maybe is a little rusty on a resume. So anyway, I'll call them up. I'll assess them, determine who I think should go forward, who's going to be a good fit with New Smyrna Beach, and then I will turn them over to my staff and to do the background checks. And we're going to ask each candidate, first of all, to prepare a document that describes their basic approach to government. It's a series of about 16 questions so that you can compare them across the table. It's normally about 6 pages long because we don't want the great American novel. You don't have time to read it, and we don't either. The second thing we do is we do very thorough background checks. We do criminal records at the county, state, and federal level, civil records at the county and federal level. We do credit and collect credit and bankruptcy. I mean, if somebody can't manage their own money, we don't want them trying to manage yours. Now, there's good reasons for bankruptcies, but it needs to have a good reason. We verify their education. We verify their employment for the past 15 years. We will check the internet. Basically, we look for local newspapers because those are the ones that tend to cover the candidate in the most depth. And we will also do social media checks. Once all those background checks have been done, references. We ask for about 20 references from each candidate. We tell them who we want to talk to. We don't want their 5 best friends. We want to talk to some of their elected officials, city attorney, city auditor, so on and so forth. That information will all come together on my desk, and I'll make the ultimate decision on whether or not that person goes forward. I'll decide whether or not they're a good candidate for New Smyrna Beach. Once that's established, we'll present the information to you. It'll be, again, their cover letter, their resume, their candidate introduction, the answers to those questions, be the background checks, the references, and the internet, media, and newspaper archives checks. We'll give you about a week, and then we'll get together with you. We have a very simple, straightforward process where you'll probably have documentation on about 8 candidates. This process will narrow it to 5 very quickly. It usually takes about 15 minutes. And we'll be talking to you, by the way, all the way along. Please don't get the impression we're going to meet with you once. We'll be calling you and getting your reaction and giving you our input. Once you've picked your 5 finalists, we recommend that you see them in 3 venues, one of which is a public reception, We believe in transparency. We want your residents to have an opportunity to meet these people. We want you to interview them one-on-one because, to my way of thinking, a manager succeeds or fails based on the chemistry he or she has with each of you. The great managers will have great chemistry with you and with any officials that succeed you and the ones that come after them. And then the final venue is like a commission meeting like this. So when you're done, you will have seen them in a social setting, you will have seen them in a one-on-one setting, and you will have seen them in a meeting setting. Now, I would also add that we would like them to tour your city and meet your staff. When we're done with that, then you can either make a decision immediately or you can wait a couple of days. I personally prefer that the elected officials sleep on it. Opinions can change overnight or over a few days. And so, you know, one of the nice things is I'm about half an hour away and I can be here anytime you need me. And don't hesitate to call. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, you know, our price is guaranteed. It's $32.5. If anything happens in the first year, we'll redo the search for our expenses only. You know, we're just excited about being here and about doing this job. And you know what? We'll give you 125% as opposed to 110 that everybody else promises. So thank you, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm sure we'll have a variety of questions. I'd like to start with Commissioner McGurk to start. We'll give everybody a chance and then a follow-up. And I'll start the timer. We'll take 15 minutes at the max.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think that's a first. You certainly threw me for a loop there.
Sorry about that. I should have warned you.
No, I enjoy it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I have some general questions for you, then some specific questions. Putting out advertisements for a job application is one way to get applicants.
One.
Is there something that you do internally, and you wouldn't have to tell me what that is, but do you look at what our needs are and then have a somehow list or an idea of who might actually be a good fit and reach out to them? So for example, you have someone doesn't want to apply, not necessarily actively looking.
Right.
They're not going to want to publicly apply, but you think that they may be a good fit. Do you have a mechanism, or does your firm consider people outside the box of just solicitations?
Absolutely, we do. We'll reach out to them. You know, the trick, of course, in Florida is everything's a public record pretty much. And so their name will probably get out there. Now that said, you know, I hate the fact that the news industry has kind of had to cut so many reporters, but it does have a benefit because in our business, their name is much less likely to get out there than it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago. But yes, we will reach out to people, we know people, and we will find people that fit your needs.
Thank you. Basic background checks, it's easy, everybody does it. Is there a way that you do background checks on people you would bring forward for this job that is, in a way, evaluates their character? Do you have a way to research their character? And how would you do that without giving up any of your own secrets?
In a sense, we do. I mean, first of all, I read people very well. That's why I'm still in business after 26 years. The second thing is we're very, very thorough. In fact, there's an article, I think, at the back of the presentation book from the Fernandina Beach Observer, and it's our vetting process is, as Dale Martin said, vetting process employed by Colin Venziger following my application to the city of Fernandina Beach was the most thorough review of my character, credentials, and references that I've ever experienced. So that's the level of detail. And it's not just talking to people, it's talking to references, it's talking to the candidate, it's reading the newspaper articles, it's putting it all together. we've been successful. That's all I can say. The results demonstrate our success.
So I was impressed with the presentation that I received. Reading through your material was very easy. I liked the way you presented that. I thought you were certainly the best in terms of easy reading and being able to understand your process. I do have one question, though, on task 9. Task 9, you refer to a methodology of once we have done the interviews, it's up for the commission to now pick a manager. You refer to a specific methodology that allows us to come to a quick decision.
Right.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what that methodology is?
Yes, basically, we'll be talking to you between the interviews and, well, before the interviews, we'll be talking to you during the interviews and after the interviews. Our particular methodology is we have a ballot. It has the 5 names of your 5 finalists, assuming it's 5. We ask you to pick your top 2 without indicating who's number 1 and who's number 2. And that helps you come to consensus. You can see that, somebody just has 5 votes and somebody has 4 votes, and there's a few people that don't get any. It's not that they're bad candidates, they just didn't hit the mark with you. And then the question becomes, who's your next city manager? You do have to have a second vote because the person with 4 votes might have 4 first place votes, and the person with 5 votes might have 5 second place votes. So that's our methodology, and if you want to discuss the candidates at length, you're certainly welcome to do it, but that's the approach we use. And we generally recommend that you start with that before you start discussing, because if there's 2 or 3 candidates that this whole group's not interested in, why talk about them? Let's get to the meat of the issue. So anyway.
Thank you. You definitely answered that question. I like you have a lot of Florida experience. As you know, Florida is a unique state with sunshine. So having you having a lot of experience dealing with these candidates helps a lot. You mentioned in the proposal you submitted, you referred to a specific date, April 19th, as in giving it a timeline for how things would go. On April 19th, it said we would have one-on-one interviews, full commission interviews, and then a decision. And it referred to it as 1 day. So that sparked my curiosity, because I thought that was a lot to do in 1 day. But in your verbal presentation, you actually, I think, changed that up a little bit and said after you do all the interviews, you would like to have us sleep on it.
I prefer that. Some commissions like to just run right in and make the decision. You probably noticed in the schedule that I think there was a second date that said if you don't make a decision the day of the interviews, then that's the date we would make the decision. Now, those dates are not really set in stone. Those are our suggestions, and obviously you have to have input because you may all be on a vacation that week. So, but once we set those dates, we won't miss a milestone.
Yeah, no, wasn't worried about that. I like the fact that your verbal presentation where we waited to sleep on it to make a decision. I like that better than the presentation and doing that in 1 day. So, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your compliment
sir.
on our
Just-
writing.
Just being a minder of the clock, we're halfway through our questioning session. Commissioner Martin.
Okay, I only had 3. You may cover community meeting. You talked several times about meeting with residents, so it assumes that you are in favor of community meetings.
Yes.
Thank you. Do your services include preparing a job description?
If you want us to, yes.
Okay, so that's optional. And the other question is, do you see a difference in city management or managers that handle mainland-only cities in Florida versus those who include a coastline?
That's not an easy question to say yes or no to. I think a great manager can manage an interior or a coastal city. I think the experience managing a coastal city is very valuable. So ideally, some of the candidates at least would have that experience.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it, right? Okay, good enough. Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you for your presentation and the material. It was really enlightening. I just have a couple of quick questions. Do you include in your process a follow-up process? So we hire a manager, and do you do a follow-up either with him or with us or after the fact?
It's more or less informal. We'll check back and make sure everything's going well. And, you know, sometimes there's little, manager might have an idiosyncrasy or two that that kind of turns you off. And
Okay.
so we can talk to the manager. Sometimes it's easier for us to say, hey, look, there's a concern here. And one of my early searches, I had a city manager that sat next to the city attorney, and they, commissioners complained that during the meeting they were going, and so I said to Jeff and Len, the two guys, why don't you separate yourselves? City manager sit at one end and the attorney at the other, and you know what? The problem went away. So yes, we do.
Okay. One other thing in your presentation, you mentioned that you had extensive services or provided extensive service in the state of Florida. Do you do it outside also? Because whereas Commissioner McGurk likes Florida candidates, I'd be interested in maybe somebody else, you know.
Sure. The answer is yes. In fact, our second largest market is Washington State.
Okay.
Go figure. I mean, it's just where we have inroads, and we've done, you know, we do a lot of work along the East Coast, Virginia, North Carolina, in particular Georgia. Not so much in the Midwest, but, you know, if they'll hire us, we'll come work for them. Probably the strangest one was Dickinson, North Dakota, which is about 90 miles west of Bismarck. So, and we did one in Alaska.
So, and then again, in your presentation, you also provide a service where you'll help with the negotiation part of the contract?
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
will, if you choose to. A lot of it, cities just like say the mayor and the city attorney to do it. Of course, we like to be involved to some degree and provide advice, but
Right.
it's not, you know, we don't.
Especially if you have a database on
Sure.
what salaries are in the state.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. A lot of city officials and boards have had issues with candidates that the past terminations weren't disclosed. How do you get that to come out with I know you can't get it with the 20 references. Sometimes it just doesn't come out, but how do you determine if somebody has had a past termination from a company?
Generally speaking, it's well publicized, so we know about it. But having done this for 26 years, we can look at a resume and we can see the employment pattern, and we can often determine that what happened, and then we ask about it specifically. And I think your question was, how do we figure out if somebody's been terminated, basically? And then the last thing is, sometimes when we're doing their references, it becomes obvious, you know, was he forced to leave or she forced to leave? And the answer sometimes is yes. And sometimes cities bend over backwards not to make it apparent. So it's kind of fun to dig in there and find it.
At what point in time do you actually do a deep dive on the past employment history? Is it the final 2 candidates or the final 3, or how do you determine that?
We basically do it with our top, say we picked 8 candidates to present to you, we do it with all 8. We do it early. I know some firms prefer to wait till to do the really thorough background checks until you settle on a candidate. That delays your decision, and I don't think it's of service to you. There's no point in presenting candidates to you that we might find later have problems. So we do it all up front.
Thank you.
Again, sir, thank you for your presentation. I'm interested in the hard metrics and analytics that you might employ. Do you use any of the classic tools that are out there to determine someone's numerate abilities or their analytical abilities?
We generally do not, because frankly, when we have used them, they've validated our judgment, and so it's an extra expense we generally don't incur. Having said that, if that's something that the city would like us to do, we certainly have used services, and we will be happy to use one to assist in this.
Thank you, appreciate that. Can you tell me about what happened down in Naples?
With Charlie Chapman?
I'm not sure. I read that you guys were terminated in Naples. What happened?
I'm not sure what you mean. I know
Did you have a
Charles was
Did
there.
you have a job down in Naples?
We did.
Did it go all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was there for 2 years.
All right.
And then at some point, the commission changed and the relationship soured. So
Appreciate that.
we
Thank
also
you.
did their city attorney, and they're still.
Thank you very much. In your literature, you say that you would like to be present for the final interview. I'm not sure I like that idea. Can you talk about that for a minute? Why you don't want to be present for the final interview that we do?
I'm basically present just to coordinate. I'm sitting in the audience during the public meetings. I'm not in your one-on-one
I got
or
it.
anything. I'm just making sure that the train runs on time.
You highlight in your presentation your top 3 picks that are relatively dated, 2013, 2011. Do you have any recent successes? You have one in 2013, one in 2011, one in 2014. You got any recent picks of city managers that were?
None that are of the scale of working in Dallas or Fairfax County, but we have lots of very successful recruitments.
Do you have, how many candidates do you have in your stable today for this job?
I'm not sure I can answer that question, to be honest with you, sir. I would want to know much more about New Smyrna Beach.
Yeah, no worries. How about your, can I have your top 3 questions that you ask the guys to cull the field down from 100 to the top 5?
It's, we call the field based on paper down to about 10, and then my top 3 questions basically are, what's your management style? Have you terminated somebody? I want to make sure they've got that strength. And tell me about the last person you terminated, and then I would say basically, tell me about your career, because that'll lead to other questions.
Really good. In your view, from a research that you may have already done, what are New Smyrna Beach's top 2 challenges?
I don't really see an awful lot of challenges in New Smyrna Beach, to be honest with you. I mean, I think you've got a great community here. It's always a challenge for a new manager to come in and, acclimatize to the commission as well as to the residents and the staff. So that would, I guess, be the first one, and then just making sure this government runs tip-top like a well-oiled machine and with vision.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate your answers and your time here today. Our time has expired, so I appreciate you coming forward and coming all the way down here from South Daytona Beach Shores. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure meeting all of you, and we hope to work with you. And it's, as I said, this is a job we really want to do. It's almost personal. We're so close.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. We feel the same way.
Good luck. Thank you.
Give me just a second here. So we have 10 minutes to do whatever it is we want to do before the next candidate comes in. And so, whether they want to discuss or highlight anything you liked or didn't like. I tried to be as hard-hitting as I could. I don't want to... He didn't appear to do any research on what we were challenged by, and I would think, living so close, it would be apparent easily, and he was a very polite man, but I worry that he may not have prepared. No analytics or no metrics in their selection. We're all intelligent folks that could go forward and do an interview of our own to determine soft skills. I really was hoping that they would have something that would be professionally oriented that says, hey, these top 10 things you need to run a city, and so I'm going to ask them a few questions in that regard. That's just my sense from that. So I'm kind of lukewarm. Anybody else? Lisa?
I'll say only that I'm enjoying hearing the questions from my fellow commissioners. It's nice to hear the different perspectives.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of, when you're referring to metrics, what exactly are you looking for?
So there are analytic tools and tests that executives go through to determine how they reason, what kind of math skills they have, what their ability is to read charts, how they can forecast, and some basic leadership skills. And it's not soft, they're actually hard. There are right and wrong answers.
No, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
I just
and
didn't
so
know
those-
if that's what.
And
yeah.
so that's what I was hoping, as a little more than, you know.
Right. Personality
that.
tests,
Yeah.
things like that.
Is this the next speaker?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to dispense with our 10 minutes. Let's do it differently next time, Heather, all right? We'll use our 10, we'll get 10 minutes.
Sure.
Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Thomas, welcome and thank you for coming here. You are the President of Recruitment and Leadership Development and Strategic Government Resources. We're delighted to have you with us. We're going to give you 15 minutes to make your presentation. And so you'll see a green light in about 5 minutes. You'll see a yellow light within 5 minutes to go, and then a red light when you're done. And then we'll do 15 minutes worth of questions.
Great, thank you so
Okay.
much, Mayor. Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
coming.
From there, great, okay. Well, number one, first and foremost, as mentioned, my name is Doug Thomas. I'm an Executive Vice President with Strategic Government Resources. We are obviously pleased and honored to be here tonight. We obviously feel the opportunity to work with you and for arguably what is one of the most important things you do as elected officials, and that's selecting your city manager. As you can envision, that person is charged with operating your day-to-day functions, but more importantly, working with each and every one of you in trying to understand your challenges, your issues, your priorities, and helping them become reality. So we view this as something that's very, very critical in the roles that you face. So let me tell you a little bit about SGR briefly. We have been around since 1999. We are one of the largest public sector executive recruitment firms in the country. We've given you some information about our core values and our processes. We really value the relationships we have with our clients as well as their candidates that are involved in our search. But I do want to point out the fact that in addition to being one of the larger public sector executive recruitment firms, we are a full-service local government firm. And I think that's important in the sense that beyond being in recruitment, which is an important aspect for what you're looking at here, we are embedded in local government operations on a day-to-day basis. So many individuals, such as myself, have a background in city management, but we're also involved in working with councils. I do a lot of retreats, governance retreats, servant leadership retreats, strategic planning type activities. We took over a program called the Alliance for Innovation, which was cutting-edge cities and operations across the country, and we now run that. That used to be run by ICMA, and that gets us involved with, we have several futurists on our staff, so we're involved in working with our member cities, and we hold conferences and events and programs, so we're involved in kind of understanding what's happening in the marketplace on top of that. We do a lot of interim department head placements and interim city management. We probably have 25 or 30 folks in interim capacity, so we're still embedded in those functions. And then we do a bunch of other consulting functions and things as well, in addition to running our own conferences and events and our own seminars. And so I say that in the sense that although it's important for us to understand the business of local government from a recruiting standpoint, I think one of the things that distinguishes us is we are touching so many other aspects of local government, and myself as a full-time employee after retiring from the city of Lakeland am involved in a variety of those services as well. So I bring that to the table beyond just recruitment activities. My background, as I mentioned, is about 35 years in local government. I've been in Maryland, Michigan, and Florida. My most recent position was the city of Lakeland, Florida. I'm a good client and a good commercial for SGR because I hired them to do 3 different executive recruitments when I was an active city manager. And the principal of the firm and I kind of clicked, and his style and his vision for local government and interests were very similar to mine. And so He ultimately convinced me to consider taking an early retirement and actually joining the firm on a full-time basis. So I believe in what we do as a firm so much that I decided to join it and have been doing that now for 8 years as well. You've got my background and credentials, but I've started that work in 2015, initially to kind of launch Florida, but I have always served a national base across the country in a variety of different functions and events. So the things that I like to focus on is we think are 5 different approaches to understanding what makes a successful search. We know you don't go through this. I've known your previous, I've known Pam very well over the years. I've certainly known Khalid. So we understand you've had stability in these positions, which is not always the case. So that's a calling card that will speak well to you. But it starts with us understanding what you are looking for in the position. So we spend an incredible amount of time at the front end interviewing all of you as elected officials, interviewing your department heads, interviewing your community stakeholders, your folks that you engage with, understanding that. I know you've got a couple collective bargaining agreements. We often will involve with meeting those folks just to understand what's happening. And if we understand that first, that will help us create a profile that will enable us to help you vet and identify the most qualified candidates that you're looking for in your position. In every city, every county we work in, that's going to look and feel a little bit differently, and so we have to get that right to begin with. Above and beyond that, as we go through the marketing of the position and work with you to help select your semifinalists and ultimately your finalists, we, as a former city manager and people that understand local government, we know we never want to get you caught by surprise. That does not bode well for any position. So we do an incredible amount of background work on our candidates as they go deeper through the process so that you know everything that's on them, quite frankly, as by the time they're a finalist, so there'll be nobody surprised. We know your candidates will investigate you, but in the same token, your community representatives will all be Googling people and all that, so we want to make sure you know what these people are all about. And we also are very engaged with those candidates throughout the process so that we keep them plugged in, and we also have a service guarantee. If someone leaves for whatever reason, they've gone fully through our process within 12 months, we redo the search without a professional fee. As much as I love my clients, I don't like to have to come back to redo a search, so we don't have to do that very often. Our brochure, you've seen in the background, so I won't highlight that. That's one from one of our recent searches I just completed in Largo, Florida. We'll talk about the community. We'll talk about how you're structured, when your elections take place. We'll talk certainly about the responsibilities of the position and the roles and the functions and services you provide. We'll identify through these profile interviews with all of you at the front end what we call challenges and opportunities. These are things that, in addition to running your city as a manager, there are other things that are going to be significantly of interest, and that's part of the lens that will help you identify and the candidates identify if it's a good fit. Through that discussion, we'll also identify all the theories and comments that you've had about the hard and soft skills you're looking for in your ideal candidate. And so all that will be in part of the brochure, and then we'll talk about what's required for education experience. But our job is to promote the community first and foremost and promote the position, because I assume you're going to be looking at a national search and they may or may not know much about your particular community. So we'll do an incredible amount of work to help that out. One of the things that's also important is the role of social media. I will tell you, as an active city manager over the years, and even now as a consultant working in local government, even in the 8 years I've been with SGR, it used to be we could advertise for positions and you'd get 100 applicants for almost everything that's happened. We've all lived COVID. We've all lived the Great Resignation, the Great Reset, whatever that looks and feels like now. I will tell you that marketing positions is much more challenging now than it's ever been. It's a tough position. You know, as elected officials, it's equally tough for people saying, I'm okay being maybe an assistant and not being the tip of that spear. I don't mind not being at that level. So we really have to help you promote this position and attract folks in the process. So that goes with a lot of our social media marketing. We actually have a person on board that helps us market, and all our ads and our social media platforms all look and feel differently, and they appear at different times when we believe that most passive candidates might be interested in looking at positions. And the reason I say that is that's an important element, but above and beyond that, because of our size and strength as a recruiting firm, we probably have a couple thousand people in various searches, not all for city managers, but in the local government arena at a given point in time. And so our outreach is pretty significant. We have found traditionally that about 2/3 of our semifinalists that you select have heard about the position through something we've done through an outreach and involvement. I'll talk a little bit about that marketing component of that. You certainly are going to recommend advertising in national and trade associations, but you'll see basically you're going to find our experiences, most of the people that learn about this position is something we've done to get them engaged in this opportunity in some fashion. So it's not just cast a net and they're going to apply. I've given you in the background in the brochure how this process works. From the time you give us the green light after we've finished the profile and you've approved the brochure, by the time you say go and we hit go and launch, it's typically about a 3-month process. First month's about marketing the position. Second month is about working with you and having the semifinalists complete various components of this process so you learn more about them. And the third month is finalizing that process and getting them prepared, completing all the background work and efforts. It's about a 90-day window. I think you'll find most of the firms that's about a pretty traditional window to take place, give or take vacations and holidays and availability. I wanted to point out the fact, I've mentioned that we're a very large firm. You can see in our state we've got different engagements in close to 37 states. The green is all the different clients we have. But above and beyond that, we're here in Florida. And Florida is one of the big 3 council manager states in the country. I wanted to let you know I've been active as an active manager. I have been a president of a state association in Michigan. I've been on the FCCMA board of directors here. As you can see, I'm also very much involved even in my consulting world. We have a partnership, SGR, with FCCMA, our state association, and we have a partnership to assist MITs, or managers in transition. So we're actively involved with folks that have left the position either through termination or severances or whatever the case would be. Part of that, I'm an active involvement at our annual association conferences to do resume reviews. So I'm meeting and engaging with all of our active managers and folks that are potentially looking at jobs. I'm a regular presenter and speaker at those conferences, and I also serve on a membership committee so I can work with folks and help folks in this profession. This is the second chapter of my career, so I feel passion in this regard. Beyond that, I don't know if any of you know Beth Rollins with Business Watch. We have been a member of Business Watch. We're a corporate member there, and I also serve on the Florida League of Cities. I typically serve on one of their policy committees, so I'm still engaged even as a consultant in local government operations and functions that are taking place here. And then above and beyond that, the Florida League of Cities and the Florida Association of Counties and the FCCMA have sponsor the Center for Florida Local Government Excellence. We are a corporate sponsor, one of 3, and I'm a fairly typical presenter at that as well. Just a couple overviews as we get close to the end of the presentation. These are a variety of city manager type positions, city county manager, administrators, things of that nature, people that report to boards and elected and appointed officials. Give you a snapshot. So I'm not only here in Florida, you can see I'm all over the country in that regard. In Florida, just to give you a snapshot, this is certainly something I'm well known in the state, I'm very well known in the profession, but you can get a snapshot of the types of searches I've been doing here in Florida in particular. And you'll see a number of those are repeat clients. We value that. We really, once we've kind of established, many times we get engaged for 2 or 3 or 4 other types of searches as well going forward. And the other piece I want to just highlight is what makes us different. I mentioned first and foremost, we're a full service firm. So I think that we bring other things to the table than beyond just being a recruiting firm looking for your next manager. We understand the challenges and issues you face. They're all going to be unique in each community, but we certainly understand the operating environment. Our outreach, I mentioned that we get a lot of folks that hear about our positions. One of those areas, we have a newsletter called our 10 and 10 that goes out every Tuesday morning to over 40,000 people across the country. Those are links about things that we think would be of interest, of topics of conversation at local government, elected and appointed officials. But we also feature our current and upcoming jobs. So people that may not be thinking about a job but get our 10 and 10 will hear about it or see something, and then that'll trigger a response going forward. We also run one of the largest job boards in the country. You've seen the statistics up there. So in addition to marketing the position through our efforts, you will also see it on our job site, and we'll also see it on a separate job board, which is one of the largest in the country to increase exposure. One of the things that I'm really proud of when I joined SGR is that this was my way of giving back to the profession. And the profession has changed. We used to all look a lot like me in this business. And one of the things that I strived as a manager is to encourage diversity and outreach to non-traditional candidates. And I'm extremely proud in 2022, we haven't completed our 2023 numbers, but you'll see that about 32% of our candidates that were placed were females, and over 20% of those placements were also individuals who indicated persons of color. So we really think that it's important to bring a diverse pool. Ultimately, you're the one hiring, but our job is to help you get a rich, diverse candidate pool of which to consider from. And I think at the end, what we're trying to say is that it's easy for us to just get you a bunch of candidates. But hopefully you've seen through the types of searches we do and the repeat clients that we get that we're not here just to find you a body. We want to find someone that sticks and clicks with you. And I will say, as a former manager and still a resident here in Florida, I'm really trying to advocate for our Florida profession, and I want to make sure your candidate's going to be successful. So after they're on board, we try to get them integrated into the organizations and into the state associations as well. And then last but not least, you don't have to just take it from me. We've actually done a blind survey. We did it with National Research Center. They did a survey of close to 4,000 local government officials comparing us to our competitors in this business, national and regional. You'll see that we scored the highest in all the different categories for each specific measure of quality. So not only do we take ourselves serious in what we do ask people that we engage with fairly regularly about the quality of our work. We also are, at the end of the process, we have our clients answer a survey response. So we're into continuous improvement, and we want to get a handle of what works and what doesn't. We also survey our candidates as they go through from semifinalists and above to get a feel for what works, what doesn't work as that. So we're very much involved in continuous improvement activities. So with that, I've got about 1 minute and 14 seconds to spare, so I'm going to give it back to you with some time on my clock there.
Perfect. We'll add that to the question and answer session, so we'll give you the
fine.
full half
Appreciate
hour.
that.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We'd like to start with Commissioner Martin.
Hi. Some pretty simple questions, and thank you for a very dynamic presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Community meetings, interactions with residents as you gauge the temperature of the town.
What we do or how I've done
Yeah.
it? Sure, absolutely, glad to do it. So this is, hopefully you get a sense, I'm very comfortable with people, I engage with people regularly. I think you have to be that in this business and city management to begin with. Many of our communities, in addition to having interviews with all of you and stakeholders and your department heads and direct reports and whoever else you might want us to meet with, many of our communities hold town hall meetings where I'll come in and facilitate saying, okay, let me talk about what this search is all about. And I hear from your community about what's important to them and what they see as things that are critical for the next manager to be aware of, which helps me, once again, understand your community better. So I've done it in that fashion. We've held those both internal with staff. We've also had town hall meetings where you invite your boards and commissioners and open meetings, whatever that looks like. We've also done some work where we've helped do some advanced surveys where the city has run the survey, but we've helped craft the questions so that we could get that information to get the feedback as part of developing the brochure.
Okay, so you're ready to be actively involved with the residents as well as the staff.
Absolutely. When we do those position profile interviews, it's normally 2 to 3 days. Depends on how many people you want us to meet with.
Yeah.
I'm yours during that window. So that's a full day of meetings and in the evenings and whatever that looks and feels like. Absolutely.
What about a job description? Will you be crafting a job description for our position?
So we typically, I'm going to go out on a limb on this. You're an organized city. You've had a number of city managers. My sense is you probably have a job description. We always ask for that as part of the background. We may provide some insights if we think that may be dated. And your manager will appreciate this. The manager's job description doesn't get changed a lot over the years, and sometimes just the world has changed around them. So we always add some insight and perspective. So that would be certainly part of our program to assist you if you needed that revised in any way, shape, or form.
And I would think it's important, as colleague can certainly say, it's a 24/7, 365 job. So maybe the people who want to be assistants should stay assistants rather than take on that kind of responsibility. Do you see a difference in coastal versus mainland only? In other words, applicants that have experience with coastal communities and those who don't?
So that's part of the I will tell you that my experience is you will certainly get more candidates from every search I do. Your host state will generate the most number of candidates. That's okay, but you also get more candidates from across the country. And so in Florida, there's a lot of coastal communities with intercoastal and that, but you're also going to find that this is a very mobile profession. As I mentioned, I've worked in 3 states. Many people have come and gone and worked in other coastal areas that may not be in a coastal area now, but will have that understanding. The other component you'll have in Florida, obviously, we have these things called hurricanes that unfortunately come more frequently than we'd all like at this stage. And so that type of experience in dealing with FEMA and emergency management components are critical. We are always sensitive if a candidate is coming from, I'll just say, Kansas, that has never lived on a coastal border, saying, hey, this is the best opportunity. We're going to be cautious and engage with that candidate a little bit more to get a feel for whether they fully understand the dynamics of what intercoastal and coastal communities experience and the lifestyle and all the just the ebb and flow that comes with that.
Thank you. What's your retention percentage? Let's say a 5-year, do you have a 5-year percentage retention? I know you seem to be pretty good with metrics.
So I don't have, what I can tell you is we have our guarantee. And I can tell you that in my 250-some searches, I've done 3 or over during the guarantee. Many of my placements have continued to stay in their position, but I will tell you it is a mobile profession. The average tenure is about 5 to 7 years of a manager. As you will very well know, they can walk on water with one council and have a change in election, and they find themselves out the door the next day. So the retention challenge is a function that I always am a little bit leery of addressing. I'm more than glad to have you contact any of my references. I suspect that's already been part of this effort, and you'll know that we stand behind our process. But it's hard for me to tell you that here's the percentage of folks that are still there after 5 years or 7 years, but I will tell you that's not always a problem of the consultant. Many times the politics have changed in the process. If it's not a good fit,
I think we all understand that.
Understand
one,
that.
right?
So I apologize, I don't have a number right off the top of my
That's
head,
okay.
but I can tell you that I think if you talk to any of our references or any of the folks that I've worked with, they'll be glad to tell you that our process is stuck to find them the right person.
Thank you. And my last question, do you wait for an application to come in? I'm asking because during the bulk of my career, you know, you pick up the phone, yes, George, what do you have for me today? Because it was a reach out.
Yeah.
And I'm asking if that also applies in here?
Yes and
when-
no. So unlike some firms, I'm not going to say I'm going to round up the regulars, the old Casablanca film. We're going to bring everybody, the same people that have been together. But as you can imagine, in the work that we do across the country and the work I do here in the state, I've got a pretty good database of people that I know personally. And so, yes, I would, if we're selected, I would be reaching out to a number of those colleagues and people that have been in other searches at the front end and say, we've just been selected. I want you to think about this. I'll let you know when we launch it. But above and beyond that, we will do all the other things we do to cast a wide net. But because of that, I will tell you, when I mentioned earlier, the challenge in today's recruitment environment, we could cast a wide net and get a bunch of them. There's not a search I don't do, and I suspect any of my competitors would do, that we're not reaching into our database and sending a bunch of emails and a bunch of outreaches to folks that have been in other searches that have been top candidates, and that would certainly be the case here too.
Yeah, it just seems that if you really get to know us and our needs, and you really do know a fairly good pool of candidates, that you might feel in your soul which ones might be a good fit.
Absolutely. Once we know kind of what the drivers are here, the exposure we have with all of our other searches, and not only myself, but also my colleagues within SGR, we have regular monthly meetings with our recruiters, and we talk about challenges and issues on searches, and we often are sharing candidates that have been in our searches that another search may not have seen. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a few follow-up questions. What is your follow-up process? Once we pick the manager, hired a manager, are you done with this? Are we done with you? You know.
So the task of hiring your manager and getting that person across the finish line, I basically serve as your staff person for that area. We know that this is not a job you do regularly, so we're much more engaged with you on a regular basis during that process. When it's over, as I mentioned, a couple things. Number one, you'll get a survey from us so we can get a handle of what worked or didn't work or any suggestions. Our semifinalists and finalists will also get a survey, so we review that. My process has always been, as I mentioned, I want to get people to get integrated into the organization, integrated in the state. So normally, after they've landed, they've been there for about a month, I typically make a phone call to the manager to say, you know, how's it going? I typically contact the mayor or whoever the contact that I predominantly work with to get their perception. But then above and beyond that, as I mentioned, I'm very active in the state association, so I see many of our elected official clients that I've worked with, and I'm engaging with them pretty regularly throughout the year at conferences, events, and I get feedback on how things are going. And I guess the proof in the pudding is we get called back to do searches, not necessarily to redo the search, but we get called to do other work with the city. So that's really the best effort. Like I say, we value that long-term relationship with the client.
Is a part of your process the actual negotiation of the salary and benefits, et cetera?
Yes, we will play whatever role. Every city does this a little differently, but I will tell you 99% of my clients ask me to be involved in that. And that's a good point because, number one, I can work with your city attorney, and if you have not, it's, Cleve's been here 10 years, but almost 10 years now as manager, right? Ever since Pamphlet, 10 years. So contracts have changed, and we can bring some insights of what we see in the marketplace. Okay. I can tell a council if I think they're being unrealistic in a provision, and I can also tell a candidate if I think they're being unrealistic. My job is to bring the parties together, but I'm always your client. I'm not working on behalf of the candidate, but I'm hoping to bring the parties together, and we'll serve that role, yes.
Okay. In your search process, would you discount somebody just because they don't have a lot of experience, or are you just looking for certain qualities that you think?
That's an interesting question. One of the questions I would be asking all of you is, what do you expect? I know what your job description says,
right,
but many of my communities are looking for people that have a different type of background or experience. For example, many of my clients will say, we're interested in a non-traditional candidate. A non-traditional candidate, in some case, one I found to be the best, is a former base commander in a military operation. They've run, in essence, a small city. They've done it in the confines of that. So when we hear from you what you're looking for and what you are interested in proceeding, I've had some searches where all they want is non-traditional candidates. I've had other searches where they don't want anybody that hasn't been a city manager. So it will follow what you're telling us what you want. But my goal will always be collectively, once you've told me in your profile what you're looking for, I'm always looking at skill sets and insights, and I will advance a candidate if I think they have the right background or skills, even if they may not look that way to you. But in my experience in working with them and getting to know them, that they might be a candidate for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Perrine.
Thank you for the presentation. I love that you were a city manager yourself. You know all of the obstacles that we face. And what do you foresee being a city manager yourself, what our biggest obstacle will be in finding the right candidate?
So the first, recognizing that this is a big decision for any individual, especially if they're relocating from maybe a different part of the state or out of the state altogether. They're making a serious judgment for professional development reasons that they feel it's a good fit, but they're also to some extent putting their professional reputation at risk when they join a new organization, not knowing any of you beyond what we know. So one of the things that we think is important is for us to know you and kind of what drives that, and we can be candid with candidates. Some councils, I do a lot of governance workshops where councils are totally dysfunctional and at each other, and so when I'm recruiting in those communities, I'm candid with my candidates, say this is a challenging council. Here are the issues. I don't want to have them just be placed for the sake of placing and then have to redo the search. So one of the things we'll learn is how you're doing as a group. What are the challenges and issues you're facing here? In Florida, we're facing some interesting challenges with housing. I don't recall if you have a residency requirement here or not, but regardless, in Florida, we all know property insurance is one of the highest in the country. So that's a factor of consideration. Florida has a challenge in the sense that the nature of us being a sunshine state and governed in sunshine, applications, we always candid to say when you apply, you're subject to a public records request, and that can be exposed prematurely, so that's a factor. And those are considerable issues that we have to overcome. That being said, a lot of people still want to come to Florida. We want to make sure that the right people, they're not just coming to retire in place. So those are some of the big challenges that I see that any of us would be facing in this job. They're not insurmountable. They're just issues we have to address.
With that comment, do you lose a lot of people that are coming here from other states just because everybody wants to move to Florida, then once they get here, it's just not what they expect and they go back home? What's the rate of losses from just that alone? Do you see it as a big issue?
So I can tell you, I came from 20 years in Michigan when I came to Florida, so I went through that experience myself, and we had an open government process in Michigan, but it was nowhere close to what it was here. So I've walked that walk and understand what that transition is. I went in with my eyes wide open, went to the league conferences and events to become trained in that. So any of my candidates, especially as they're getting deeper into the searches, I'm having a pretty candid conversation about, you realize you can't, there's a lot of one-on-one meetings, everything you do, everything you write in a napkin potentially is a public record, just so they understand what that culture is, because I don't want them to come down here and be one of your finalists, then all of a sudden freak out that they say, oh, I didn't understand that. So that's on me to do that, and I can tell you from somebody that made that transition, that's a pretty easy conversation for me to have with candidates saying, I've been there, I've done it, and we can manage it. Nobody would probably design the system we do, but we make it work regardless of that here in Florida. So.
Thank you. That leads to my next question. Right now, there's a big lawsuit because a recruiter didn't disclose that there was a termination with the candidate that a city hired.
Okay.
How do you determine if there's been past termination, and at what point in your process do you do a deep dive with the background checks?
Sure. So I'm going to describe the process of the search as like a funnel. At the front end, at the top of that funnel, we're going to know a little about a lot of people. And then as you become semifinalists, we start to learn more about those folks. And by the time they're finalists, we do the whole deep dive. So when I'm doing a triage with you of your candidate pool and helping you determine who you want to select as a semifinalist, I've done some initial background, and our spidey senses will say, they've had a lot of turnover, or whatever the case is, or we'll pick up if there's been a challenge. And we'll point that out to you. It's a public process. We'll point that out to you at the time when you're having conversations. When they become semifinalists, they answer a detailed written questionnaire. Some of the questions I ask, is there anything in your background we need to be aware of that could be concerned to a future employer? Anything in the media, what's out there? I want them to tell me first. But we also do what's called a stage one media search, which is a LexisNexis review of wherever their names have popped up in the media. So I'm hearing from the candidate. I'm also doing some independent review. We have people that actually do that review. When we get to finalists and we go forward, then we do what's called a stage one media search, which is a much more deeper dive. We have actually personnel that review wherever they've worked as an adult, and they go back through all the local media stories, television, radio, print media, and everything else. You'll have a link of that information. We'll have all that material together. It will identify anything that we view as findings or potential controversy. Once again, we know your communities are going to do this, so we want to make sure you have that information available. And then above and beyond that, we do a process for our reference checks. We certainly ask for a variety of references by the time they're finalists, and we're asking for supervisors, subordinates, elected, appointed, a variety of a 360 review. And I was a doubting Thomas on this, but we actually have an automated service that is beyond belief. What it does is we know that the candidate's reference has responded. We know that they have participated in an anonymous process, and they get a chance to respond to a variety of numerical information about their, the background of the candidates and things of that nature. But they also have a chance to provide written comments. And I will tell you, both as a former city manager but also as a recruiter, we get more detail on that anonymous type of response from survey or from references than we would ever get when you call, yes, they worked here, yes, I'd hire them again, no, they weren't fired, and that's about the extent that we get out of it. We get so much more. And we do that because people have a sense that we know they participated, but we don't know how they've ranked the particular candidate. And so that's an additional level of detail that I said, we've done that for about 4.5, 5 years now, and I'm blown away the amount of detail that we receive on those. And you'd be surprised, not everybody's references don't always give them the same level of quality that they thought that they might. So good stuff.
Thank you. And my last question deals with LinkedIn. I worked a lot in the recruiting field of the corporate world, and we actually were able to put a lot of matrix in the LinkedIn to screen out the candidates in advance before we even got the applications. Do you use the metrics available on LinkedIn, and how successful is LinkedIn for you?
So LinkedIn is one of our major platforms that we use to market positions. And then I will tell you as a recruiter, when I'm evaluating and breaking them off into the different tiers and helping you work through the semifinalists to select your semifinalist and your finalist, I'm typically looking at those LinkedIn profiles of those candidates. So that's part of my background before you even get to them, that we've done some work. But once again, that's at the top of the, as we go deeper, we're always going to learn more as we go deeper in it, but we'll do some the due diligence, because we know that that will be a factor of concern. Now, I should comment The nature of this profession is that if you're an active city manager, you're likely to have ruffled some feathers somewhere along the line. So I've had some communities say, don't bring anyone with baggage. And I said, you've just taken about 90% of the candidate pools off the table, because any manager that has made decisions has obviously upset some folks. Now, how they've done it and the dynamics at play is an effort. So we can help you kind of decipher. We think this is a challenge, but we think they did the right thing. And you as a board have to decide how much tolerance you have for some of that noise. Make sense?
Totally, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug, how you doing?
Great to see you, Jason.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Two questions for you. The first one is, in the information that was submitted to us beforehand on your firm, you go back to 2018 and talk about your city and management recruitments. You have a lot of city and county manager. When I look at the presentation that you gave us today, you have a lot of department head searches, but you don't have a lot of city or manager, county manager searches.
That would be my list of the recent ones I've done. Now, so there's two components. Well, let me. I guess I want to make sure I understand the nature of your question.
Okay, so actually, hold on a second. Trying to merge these two.
I think what you'll
In
see
this
there.
information, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Those would
We
be
have
kind
a
of-
lot of department heads. We don't have a lot of managers in here. In your city and county, in your 2018 to present, you have a lot of managers, a lot of manager work, but most of it is not from Florida. So I'm just trying to connect.
Sure. Okay. Well, I give you a sense of that. So number one, I as a there's 20 some right there in terms of city management work. So let me put some context here. So I am a full-time employee with SGR. I split my time basically in three different buckets. I do about a third of my time in executive recruitments for city, county, executive director, department heads, whatever that bucket looks like. I spend about a third of my time in council retreats, strategic planning, governance, servant leadership, whatever that all looks like. And then the other piece is pretty active speaker at state and national conferences. So although I'm a full-time employee, I've probably done close to 250 searches since I've been with SGR since 2015. That would be a list of city, county manager, executive positions. But as you'll see in the next slide, many of those cities that I've worked with I've built a relationship and they want me to come back to do a department head. So it's hard for me to tell a client I'm not going to do it just because they're a department head. So I try to balance that work. But so I do a lot of recruitment. I'm totally comfortable and hopefully, and you've got a sense of the size and the places and the different parts of the country, working with all sorts of elected and appointed boards. I'm very comfortable in that arena. And so if your concern is, do I know the difference between that, I certainly understand that.
Well, it wasn't a
dynamic.
concern, it would, yeah, I was just curious as to why one was so heavy with city manager and then this one, and yours encompasses everybody, including all department heads. There was
That's
just a disconnect between the extensive city manager and recruitments that have done, and then the one you gave us had many more department heads than it did managers.
Gotcha. That's just, I wanted you to be aware. I'm certainly aware of that when I was brought on board, and obviously I'm a former city manager, so I understand that role and feel very comfortable in that arena. So I apologize if there's a disconnect, but
No, that's fine.
Yeah, that's certainly in my category of expertise.
Please pardon the interruption. I'm so sorry. We're 4 minutes exceeding the
Okay,
15-minute question
I
time.
got one question for him, one last question, that's it. We met at the executive, you were the firm hired and the lead on the TPO.
Yes, right.
Executive committee.
Yep, that's why I remembered
Right.
the connection there.
No,
Absolutely, yeah.
You see a lot of people, I see you once, so
Yeah.
obviously much easier
No,
for me to
that's why I
recognize.
referred you because I knew we had met at that point.
Right. So I have a question about that. Tell me about how you think that search went for that executive director role.
It was an interesting process because, as you know, we ended up, your interim was not a candidate originally for the position. We went through a process. I believe we had 4 finalists that we were ready to do, and then we lost at the 11th hour. One of them was, he could not make it in at the end of the day because they had a major community event, and he was a planning director, and so he had to cancel out. One other candidate, I believe, got another job, and had to cancel out in the process. It shook out. We just lost a few right at the end, and I've never had that happen before, which is why I actually went back to meet with the board. We ended up with 1 candidate, and I said, I don't think it makes sense for you to bring in 1 candidate. How do you want to handle it? And then at that point, the board decided that they wanted to advance the position in an interim basis with your interim, and we helped negotiate some packages and what that looked like. So I will tell you, that's the first time I've had that happen. In all my searches, in close to 250 searches, I've never had where I've lost a bunch of candidates. So the planets were aligned improperly, or Mercury was in retrograde, or whatever the case would be. I felt badly about that, but I have tried to recognize that it will occur. Fortunately, that's the only time it's ever happened with me. And so our goal is, if at the end of the day we talked about whether we're going to go back out or not, you ultimately decided to offer the position to your interim on a regular basis, and you've gone forward from there. So it was not the smoothest of searches at the tail end. Everything was going fine until we got literally to that point. We just lost some candidates, and unfortunately it just unraveled at the end. But I can tell you, it's the only time it's happened to me.
Well, Doug, I appreciate your candidness on that. That impresses me. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yep.
So we're running over, so I have 2 quick questions. How many candidates might you have for this particular position already in your stable?
Oh boy, that's a hard question for me to answer because I haven't talked to you all yet about what you're looking for. I will tell you,
Absent that, how many have you got that are
we've got thousands of candidates that would
for
be
for city manager?
For city
there
manager,
are thousands of candidates
Yeah.
for city manager that.
Let me go back to this slide here. I'll give you a snapshot of in this right here, this statistic. So we have in that second bullet, we have 5,000 managers, either managers or assistant managers, that are specifically asking for advance notification from SGR whenever we have city manager positions. So automatically, those 5,000 people are going to get emails from us and a blast on this position right out of the block because they've already pre-registered. Now, beyond that, that doesn't count all the other candidates that we know from other searches. Those are people that have pre-registered to get an advance notice of opportunities.
Thank you. What analytic tools will you use to cull it down to a reasonable number?
So our process is we will, when we triage with you, we think it's important that you're aware of who's all applied. One of the things I'll ask you, do you want me to triage those down to a smaller number, or do you want me to simply go through a process of saying, here are the people we think are your top candidates, but here are some other folks that maybe not check off every box, but you might be interested in looking at them. I know as a manager, sometimes I've kept some of those people in a pool, and sometimes I've hired them at the end of the day because we just didn't get enough from them at the front end. So I'll talk with you about, as a group, how you want me to do that. So we can either present all the candidates and have them in kind of ranked buckets of meeting and exceeding, closely meeting, those that we don't think are qualified.
And how will you do
interns.
that? What tools will you use to do that?
It's a presentation I would go through with you as a group, and I would highlight and unpack those candidates and saying, here's the background, here's where they've worked, here's the types of experience they've got, and then out of that process you would typically select 12 to 15 folks that you want to take to the next step as a semifinalist. But Mayor, to your point, I've also had a number of communities saying, we want you to bring us the 12 or 15.
Yeah, I want you to do the work.
Every
And
client
so
is different.
All right,
Yeah.
so I've got that. How will you do that? What tools will you use?
I will use the lens in which you've told me you're looking at this position. That's the information in the position profile brochure, the challenges, the issues, the background, the attributes. That'll be my lens. And then I do have some clients that say, we just want you to present the top 20 candidates and we'll pick our group.
That said, what in your research that you may have already done, what are the top 2 challenges that the next city manager will face in New Smyrna Beach?
So if you're like obviously you've got sustainability issues regarding beach erosions and waterfront issues and things of that nature. I've seen some of that stuff in your budget in the process. I've seen you address some questions about homelessness. That's happening all over the state, and we see that here as well. I don't know to what extent that is the factor. We see congestion as being always a factor. As a beachfront community and a waterfront community, those are going to be factors of concern. The whole challenges of what's taking place with your financing of your local government, especially with state, and we're now in the state session, so we're all under jeopardy in the next 60 days of what's going to take place, but there's home rule authorities that are going to be challenging those issues. Housing affordability is another factor that we see typically in communities such as yours that will be a factor as well. So, but those are just kind of high-level items. We will obviously talk with you and get a sense particularly about other things that may be below the surface that we may not be aware of.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation, Mr. Thomas. Appreciate you answering our questions and your time here today with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. If I could just close, I hope you get a sense. I do this because it's something I feel passionate about. It's the second chapter of my career. I hope you'll see that that's the energy and enthusiasm we bring to this process, because we really want you to be, as a community, and we really want our Florida communities to be successful. So appreciate your opportunity. I know you got a difficult choice. I know your other finalists as well. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
So, Heather, let's make sure we get 10 minutes to cuss and discuss here before the next person enters the building.
Mayor, would you like a few extra minutes because I pulled time from you
Sure,
before?
sure.
Okay,
We'll see
so
what, and if we
We'll
can.
do 15?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great. Awesome. I'll just run the clock then. That's great. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
You better beat everybody there.
No, I'm going this way. I think teamwork, right?
Yeah, yeah. Heather, I know you're in the lobby. We can start talking when you leave the building. He's still there. Heather, we're anxious to start talking, and so if you'll escort him out of the building. I'm watching him in the building. We'd like to start talking. We can start talking when those microphones, those speakers are off. They're on right now. If you'll get him out of the building, that'll help us. Really good, thank you. Just make sure that they're out when we can start. Now we'll start 15 minutes, okay? All right, very good. What do you think there, Valley?
I like this SGR a lot better than the other one.
He had a gab, right? He was a talker, so in the essence of fairness, I wanted all of us to be able to at least ask a question. I know Kelly she got us because we were over time, but in fairness, if we're gonna get a talker and everybody gets a chance to ask a question, I think it's totally fair for our system to have everybody ask a question rather than him hold down the microphone and talk for 10 minutes on one question.
You can each have like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be fair about it. Jason, I know you had some concerns.
Yeah, thank you. So it was interesting. I dealt with specifically him and his firm with the executive director of the TPO. I was the chair at the time. And they came in and they did a wonderful, awesome presentation. And much like he just did tonight. You go off that presentation, he was fantastic. And the resumes looked great. Everything, his whole presentation looked fantastic. They had a good reputation out there. And the bottom line is the end result was very, very poor. I told myself, if I ever go through a search again, I will make sure that I do not support that company again. Now, I watched him come up here, and he's such a good salesman. I'm like, well, maybe he wasn't that bad. I'm kidding, but so it was a very bad situation, and we went out for a search, came back with 10 to 12 of them. It was difficult to finalize 5 or 6. Once we actually looked through the 5 or 6, we went back out for another search. And we had people dropping off and trying to come back in. It was a disaster. And we finally just said, and the process went twice as long, paid more money. And then finally it was like no mas. And we hired someone in-house who had absolutely no experience, who no one anticipated hiring in the first place. We just wanted to get out of it. Now, I can tell you that the person we hired who was in-house, we gave her a shot, and it has worked out pretty well. Randy may be able to speak to that. Randy on the TPO now deals with her. And I left as past, I do 1 year as chair and then a year as past chair, and then you get off as etiquette. So,
Synopsis I got from what you just said was good on the sales side, nice, good color glossy, and on the execution was not so much.
correct.
You follow up on that, Randy? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never dealt with him before, and it seems like his answers were to appease us on some of those items and questions that we had. So, but, it's so hard to pick through this.
Yeah.
At least I thought you asked some really good, hard-biting questions right off the bat. You got to need a feel for the quality of this guy.
Thank you. I felt he was good on some of the metrics. I can't help but think that found myself wondering, what is the social media time? In other words, has it become an important factor over the last 10 years, 20 years? When we look at somebody's career, somebody of a certain age will have a career prior to social media, if you know what I mean. And if we're relying only on social media, but I don't have a feeling for what that period of time is. If you were convicted of larceny and grand robbery in 1972, would it be captured somehow in this? I just don't know what that timeline is. But liked the metrics, but felt a little bit too salesy. And that comes from a person who made her living doing that. But
Really good. Appreciate the input. Mine would be a large firm. I like the broad reach. Again, no analytic tools. I pushed him twice on any math tools, and not so much there. Their fee structure is interesting. There is a not to exceed, and then there's a menu after the not to exceed, which exceeds. So it's not what it appears, and so a little bit interesting there. And then I did like the 2-year warranty on, hey, we'll be right there for 2 years and do it again if we have to. So cautioned by the great sales pitch. I love a good sales pitch, but a little too slick always makes me feel a little uncomfortable. So whereas the first guy didn't have much energy at all, this guy was over the top and is a great seller. He's been in college chair before. He knows how to work his commission. So interesting thing.
My
but
take,
yeah,
my
go ahead.
take on the first two, you said, the first guy had no energy, but he was an older guy, and you can tell he was used to newspapers. He was not familiar with the new whole social media thing. Mm-hmm. And this guy was young enough to be able to adjust to where he's more focused on social media. Mm-hmm. So what impressed me about the first guy was, he seems like an intellectual or reader type. But how archaic is that? I mean, there is no newspapers, and he said that, right? He said there's, no newspapers, and, I mean, just from the last 10 years. There used to be a reporter in here all the time, writing stories on everything we wrote. I haven't seen that in 5 years.
That's
So-
the line I'm looking for
Yeah.
between, you want the tail end of newspapers, but you also want heavy social media. Yeah, I really felt like we wanted more of a melding, because I also don't want them only to rely on the last 5 or 10 years of social media.
The first guy, I think, was working off his reputation. Decades in the business, and they both are. But the first guy was, it was. And I apologize for taking time. The other interesting observation is when I've done these searches at the TPO, they came in with teams. So it's shocking me that both have come in just one person.
We didn't prescribe that, right? We didn't prescribe who could talk or how many. They could bring whatever they want.
Exactly.
Randy?
So I'll let the three of you know that at the end of all this, I want to know what your evaluation was now that you've seen him for a second time. Because that to me will tell a lot. What did they present to you, and then what did they present to us? And how would you, what you're feeling? So be thinking about that for the next.
The first guy, too, didn't have any recent accomplishments, which I didn't like. I think one of you guys pulled that out. 2013 was the last recruit. And then he didn't know his mayor was a she, not a he. That ended it for me right away. At least the second one did enough research to know.
So he didn't even notice Nancy. Interesting. Yeah, that was kind of one of the things I noted about Doug, was that he seemed to have an understanding of Florida challenges, but I didn't hear anything specific to New Smyrna.
Well said, Lisa. That was my exact thought. Because he is a Floridian and he is in tune with Florida League of Cities, he knows some canned answers. And then they're on the coast. Obviously, they have a beach problem. Obviously, they have a homeless problem. Obviously, they have a crowding problem.
yeah.
Okay, I got that. You had your chance to show me what research you did ahead of time on our little town.
Well, that was also, I found that in what I was looking for was proactive. And proactive in terms of candidate, like I know New Smyrna Beach and I know these three people would be really good because I know my candidates and I know the city. And he went to a different place than proactive.
Yeah.
Right,
A little
so,
too canned about Florida.
yeah, but it was also, I'm giving him the chance to show how proactive he is. And he goes back to this huge pool.
Right, he
He
goes
goes back to the ocean rather than to his vetted candidates. He had the chance to say, I know New Smyrna would, that this would be a great fit because it's New Smyrna and it's because it's this X number of candidates.
Right on.
And I want to go to those people first.
Yep, yep.
Because I know so much about both sides.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that proactive.
Anything else? So we don't have to take all the time if we don't need it. Anything else? Okay, good enough.
Keeping Heather on her.
So Heather, we were going to use, we're not going to use the rest of the 4 minutes and 45 seconds. So we're ready when you are, ma'am, for the next candidate.
It's really been good hearing the dialogue and the different questions coming from the different perspectives. We never would have known that about TPO.
Right.
It's one of those times where I think we sing as a collaborative group.
We have to. This is our biggest decision.
I know.
So this will be Jim Deneen, President of HR USA.
Mayor, while we're waiting for him to come downstairs,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wanted to confirm to you that we did turn off the broadcast in the lobby, so they were not able to hear. I verified.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for saying it. I did, not knowing that, I was worried because we're watching and we didn't want to talk while you were out there.
Absolutely. So I
Thank you.
verified when I just went out.
Awesome, thank you.
And I assume that the candidates are not hearing their competitors, or are they?
No, we've put them upstairs in a conference room where it's not broadcasted.
Thank you. Always good to know when an assumption is in fact correct.
Yes.
I liked Randy's ad to say, I'd like the committee to tell us now before and after. That'll be really insightful, what you three,
Yeah.
what you three have
He's not
discerned.
just a pretty face. His words, not mine.
Wait, wait a minute.
And of course, Mr. Rashadat, you know, you're sitting in an interesting chair as you watch your successors come in. So at the conclusion of this, we're going to ask you for some concerned thoughts. Shay gets the honor of being both on the committee and as the city attorney, and Kelly, similarly, what you have to think, to say about this is going to be a teammate of another charter officer. So how you see the search firm will be important to us as well.
Is his presentation?
It's funny how we do different things. It may also be the direction of the fan. I frequently feel like I'm sitting right under some kind of a cooling fan, which is fine if it's 98 degrees. Really love that you picked up on the program.
That's good.
Good evening and welcome, Mr. Deneen. Jim, it's good to see you here. You are the president of Gov HR USA. We're delighted to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your submittal. We're going to give you 15 minutes of time. You don't have to take it all to give us your pitch, and then we're going to ask you some questions for 15 minutes, and then that'll do it for tonight, if that's all right with you.
Well, Will, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Clearly, I know better than to read those slides or stay here for 15 minutes. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. What I'd like to do is just kind of walk through and thank you once again for giving us this opportunity. Of all people, I probably am a little bit biased when I say it's probably the most important decision you'll make. If not the most important in most people's mind, I think it's the most important. What I think, probably the best way for me to phrase this is that I really appreciate the opportunity to compete with the other firms. The other three firms are good. I think we're all professionals that have been doing this for a while. I've been doing it since 2019 after I spent 44 years in government, and about 22 years of that I was either a city manager or a county manager. In fact, I was a Volusia County manager for 12 and a half years. We all use some of the same techniques to get candidates, though I will tell you, I'm going to try and point out here quickly why I think we are more uniquely qualified for this specific proposal. Go to the first slide. What this slide really demonstrates is that we were a fairly big size firm for a recruiting firm of 70 people. We recently we merged with MGT. MGT's out of Tampa. They tended to do educational things, comp studies. They were looking for a partner to do public sector recruiting. So they weren't in the business. So they bought us in entirety, and so nothing will change from GovHR. In fact, you saw in our literature, it's a our logo is a co-logo because of the two companies. We are, I think, ahead of a lot of people in technology in terms of how we recruit people. We have a large staff. We have almost 70 people on the GovHR side, and now we have 500 staff from MGT. That brings us the opportunity on a national level for big resources, but what we do on the recruiting side is we're very focused locally. There's 36 other consultants like myself that have anywhere from 25, or I think I have the most at 44 years of experience in the public sector. So we try to really understand the candidates, because in today's world, when we recruit, especially for people like ourselves that have done this job for a long time, I think one of the things that's a fame of ours is that I can get you candidates. In fact, I think we're better. We have a bigger network that gets candidates on a larger scale for people. But it's not just the qualifications that people have on paper. The real reason people have hired us and our reputation has gotten bigger is because you need someone that fits the culture of the community. Someone that has the right chemistry in terms of what the commission's looking for. And I'll be doing individual stakeholder meetings with the commissioners to really understand what you're looking for. And I think because of my experience, I think I have a better understanding of how to articulate that. Also, I can tell when I'm talking to people. Our mission, like in a lot of cases, is, like I said, I know it's very important to you, but we realize how important on the social impact that it is in a community to have the right people. And so we take this very serious. That is the main function of GovHR. You'll see here on this slide, unfortunately, there's this picture of me. I'm kind of old there. But anyway, we have a fairly extensive team. I'm going to have the full support of that team. So I have the resources that a lot of people don't have. And when you say, what do you use those resources for? Things like background checks, reference checks. We pride ourselves in going further than most people. The one thing you don't want from a candidate, especially if you start picking somebody, is to find there's a surprise with baggage in their background. And I will tell you right now, almost every candidate that you're going to see, if they've been in the field long enough, is going to have some baggage. There's just no way around it in today's world. Because if they're following the direction of the council and somebody disagrees with the council or the commission, a lot of times the first person they want to beat up is on the manager. I also believe that we would be uniquely qualified because I think that what I bring is a vested interest in the position that no one else has. I live here. In fact, I would say I'm the only person that will present today that could walk home. In fact, I almost walked over today. So I think I understand the community better. I've made a choice. I lived in Ponce Inlet for 12 and a half years. We made a choice, moved here in 2020. We love New Smyrna Beach. How does that matter? It matters in the sense that I think I have a better understanding of how, when I'm talking to potential managers, about how the community works. I've known your previous managers. You know, New Smyrna Beach has been very fortunate because you've had really good management. So not every community, sometimes they don't deserve it because they don't treat people correctly, but you've had good management. So you're going to want to have it, and I think I know what kind of management you're going to want. You're going to want very high quality that's going to fit your needs. I think I'm also a really good ambassador for people that are thinking about moving here, because one of the things they want to know is if I put myself, which they do to a certain degree, you know, good people that are looking for, we don't go after people necessarily looking for a job. We're looking for people that are looking for an opportunity. And a lot of times we can explain to them why this is worth it if they're going to move across the country. A lot of questions I get is it the place that I want to move my family? And here's the other thing. And I have to make sure I tell people this, because the other thing is that for a lot of people that are really good, if they show their hand at their employer that they are thinking about taking another job, it doesn't go over very well sometimes. And so sometimes the best candidates, they're only willing to take that gamble, the very best, if they think this is the right community that's worth moving to. I think I can make sure that they understand what the community's like. As you see here, our experience is second to none. 97% of the clients that we've had never had to use our guarantee. Only 3% did, and in those 3% cases, they were pretty unique and probably justified. As you can see, we did 1,400 recruitments across 44 states. How do we bring people in? We're like the other firms. We use a lot of the same technology, LinkedIn, et cetera. For example, we have our own career center, which gets 14,000 visits a month. These are from, all we do is recruit in the public sector, so they're all public sector people. Have a weekly blast that we send out to people that register with us. That's 7,000. We have a database of 9,500 people that we keep in contact with that are some of these managers. and other professionals that we know, if the right opportunity comes along, they're looking for a job. We have 25,000 LinkedIn followers at any given moment. Why is that important? I'll tell you why it's important. Because we believe, and I'm very serious about this, that not only will we get you more candidates, we'll get you more qualified candidates, which will give you a better pool to pick from. Why do I say that? Because our recent statistics are that of all the recruitments we do, and even we were happily surprised to find this out. We've had a big discussion about this last week at the headquarters, was that 48% of our clients, or of our candidates that went to clients, came from our network. Not from ICMA, they came from our own network. And for example, I'm working on a job over in Brevard County. Before I posted the job, I had 5 people I already talked to because we put the word out. And the other 35 people like me, as soon as we have an opening, we discuss that. We have corporate meetings every week, and we discuss what candidates we have, because I'll have people like maybe somebody in Montana that says, I know somebody. So I think that makes us uniquely qualified there. As you can see here, I won't go through all this. This is some of our experience. We have plenty of experience across the country and plenty in Florida. One of the reasons that I decided to retire, there gets to be a point at which I did almost 45 years. And then the right opportunity came along to me, which was I didn't want to quit working. I wanted to work part-time, but I really wanted to do this. I loved this firm. They recruited me. They wanted somebody from Florida that wasn't just somebody from Florida. They want somebody that managed in Florida. One of the things that's really important to you, and it was to my commission and my council here, was that I'm going to make sure we follow the Sunshine Law, because that's really important. The other thing is, in my experience, is that the Sunshine Law, you can pick whoever you want. Let me make this clear. You can pick whoever you want. The biggest issue most people have is, did you give people an opportunity to apply? We make sure that we go out as much as we can. We advertise in all kinds of places. We put the word out. And anybody that really feels in this community they're qualified or think they would like to apply, they will get reviewed by us. So there won't be anybody that we won't review. Now, they may not make it into that top group, but I think what's important is you're going to have a diversified group of people that had the opportunity to apply. That, to me, is what happens in some communities where they have problems. Next one is just really kind of shows how our outreach has worked and how professional it's been. As you can see, our statistics mirror the ICA membership statistics. I think that's important. We are well known for being really good at getting a diversified group of candidates. The next slide very quickly sort of walks you through how we do this. You see the stakeholders on the, I'll get into this in a little more detail on the next slide. This is really the process. It takes about 90 to 120 days. It has a lot to do with how fast you can react and come together and have meetings when you need to, how fast, if you have a subcommittee that you want to look as we narrow people down, all that has to do. The only sort of hard and fast rule is that we don't recommend you advertise for less than 30 days. Also, I think our fee is very competitive, and by the way, our fee includes your advertising costs, so there's nothing additional there. Next slide is really the slides that I just talked about in terms of the stakeholders interview. Here's the other thing that's going to make us uniquely qualified. At no extra cost, okay, I am willing to handle all of the stakeholder interviews in person. And I'll meet your schedules. And if you have anybody else, sometimes the council wants it just themselves to be interviewed as stakeholders, but sometimes they have like a group they would like. If they would like, I can do it by Zoom, by phone, but I found that if I do it, with my experience, if I do it in person, I get a better feel for what people really want. And also, and I live right down the street, so it's not an issue in terms of me meeting at any time to stay involved in the process. Once we do the initial screening, and I know what we're looking for, what we will do is put together a brochure and the job announcement. You will get to see all this and approve it before it goes out. You also know the ad source list. We usually ask the client to, the client to allow us to put our link on your website so that other people, if they look at your website, can link back to GovHR. As we go through that process, what will happen is, let's just say for argument's sake, we have 100 people, okay, that apply. Well, we'll try to get to usually around 10 or 12, okay, of the best. I'll interview all those by Zoom for about an hour. And to be honest with you, it's more art than science. I can usually tell, especially if I have a good profile, what you're looking for. I know what to ask, but more importantly, I know what follow-up questions to ask when they give me answers. Because I've done the job long enough, I know, and I'm trying to find what you're looking for. We will do our outreach then. As I mentioned, about 50% of our clients come from our own network. That takes like about a month. Once I have that candidate pool, then I've got to talk to the commission about how you want to narrow. Let's say we get 10 people, 12 people that I interview. Well, there's always an issue. Sometimes commissions want to have a subcommittee that can help take that down, because I'll usually have maybe 6 or 7 out of the 10 or 12 that are the best. And then sometimes with either yourselves, if you want to do it, or subcommittee, we try to get to the top. Usually 3 to 4 is all most commissions ever want to interview. And here's the other thing. Under Florida law, the one thing we will not be doing, we're not allowed to do, is recommend to you on who you hire. All we're going to do is, of the candidate pool, is tell you who we think professionally are the best qualified. And usually what it'll get down to is 3 or 4 people that are equally qualified that you'll have to make a decision on. And if we've really done our job well, you have a hard time making that decision. I'll move along. And then last but not least, one other thing will make us uniquely qualified. We never do this. We give a 1-year guarantee. We made one exception. That was in 2023. I did the manager's position for Ponce Inlet. And we gave them, they wanted a 2-year guarantee, we gave it to them. So I live here, it really matters to me, I'm vested. I talked to the company and said, because then I'll end up doing it. Okay, we don't get paid twice, okay? The only thing you'd have to do is pay for the extra advertising if we ever have to go back out. But we're willing to, which we don't do for anybody, we'll give New Smyrna Beach a 2-year guarantee. Am I worried? No, because I think this is a very good, well-run, stable government, and I think that you'll get good candidates, and I think you'll treat those people well. So I'm not worried that that guarantee will have to be used. With that, I'll answer any questions, and I tried to sum up
Thank you
as
for
best
your
I could.
presentation. Jim, you said you wouldn't go over, and you did.
Oh,
So that's all right. That's all right. We're
How
not
much
going
did
to
I go
no
over by?
penalty for that. We'll start with Commissioner Perrine.
It looks like you've only had success with one city manager and then possibly a town manager.
I personally have done Ponce Inlet. I did the deputy in Deerfield Beach. I have done the county manager in St. Johns County, and I'm doing Apopka's manager right now as we speak. But I've done a bunch of deputies, other positions, chief science officer, public works director. Because of my varied background, I get all those assignments too.
And because of your background, what do you see as our biggest challenge in finding a good candidate that will actually stay in Florida and be successful? What are your main obstacles that you foresee?
You know, I don't think you're gonna have that problem. Knowing what I know about the community, about New Smyrna Beach, I think you're gonna have the opposite. I think if you really do, and I mean this for everybody, all the other firms too, I think if they do the right research, I think you are gonna get, your reputation, this is what happens. You have such a good reputation that you're the kind of community that people will wanna come to. There are managers that would show their hand to come to this community. I think your bigger issue is gonna be picking, in the end, between a couple of really good people.
You mentioned that our biggest problem is going to be that they are going to have some baggage in their background. But one of the lawsuits going on right now is because of a termination, and that city manager brought that baggage to the new place, and the recruiter didn't disclose that to the city, and there's an ugly lawsuit going on. How do you handle background checks to where you know if that person was terminated with something that would be disadvantage to us if we hired that person and they have the same behaviors here that they did in the past workplace?
Well, I think that's a big issue. When I said you're going to meet baggage, that don't mean that your final candidates might have it. What I'm going to tell you, if I get 100 or more applicants, some of them people are going to have the baggage. Here's what we do, and this is good if you've done this job. There's a difference between baggage that, I've seen elected officials get baggage because they did their job. And that's what happens to managers sometimes. So we try to know the difference between, was it something that they were doing that people didn't like, where they don't like them because the council has the manager doing something, or was it something that was unprofessional, unethical? We make sure that we find that out. We have a team, of 8 people. This is what makes us stronger than a lot of places. We got 8 people that just do background checks. And I'll be honest with you, with the new software and stuff now, it is amazing how well, this is what we're finding out, people can hide this stuff. It's become a lot more difficult for us. We do that before we present the final group of candidates. We also do all their reference checks. And we go back and cross-check references. We try to make sure in your case, if there's any baggage, it needs to be something that is not a detriment, okay? I don't anticipate you having a candidate that has baggage in the background that would be embarrassing to them or you, and any of the people would bring in the final analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a couple questions. Do you have a follow-up process? What happens once the candidate's been hired?
We do, here's the issue. We do, if there's any issue that any of the commissioners have, then they always have my number, call me, okay? And we also have, obviously, a relationship with the candidate, because sometimes they may want some guidance, okay? But generally, that's only if there's an issue. Here's the thing, if we've hired really good people, okay, then we don't usually have to have an issue with the follow-up. Because, and in this case, I really want to stress this, I really think that communities that are well-run, that are respectful, okay, and that of each other and of their manager, and are stable, you will draw candidates a lot of places won't. I don't think you'll have anybody who have a problem like that. Here's the point, though. If you would, obviously we guarantee, we will deal with the city government, okay? Or sometimes we've had city commissions that wanted us to do some additional training with the manager. We've had that happen. That's a separate proposal we can give you.
Is a part of your service also with the negotiation of the first contract?
Yes, if you'd like us to do that.
Okay. Let's say that you have a candidate that doesn't have a lot of experience. Are they automatically excluded, or are you open-minded enough that maybe this may be the right fit even for someone who's, not been in the business for a long period of time?
Let me answer it this way. What will determine that is that when I sit down with each one of you individually, I really expect you to be candid. I'm really good at not telling other people what you told me. That's how I survived for 12 and a half years, okay? Is that I know how to take input and not speak about it to other people. If you're honest with me, what you're really looking for, then I can answer that question because I'll know what'll fit what your needs are. Here's the other thing that we're also known for, and that is we also open ourselves up for non-traditional paths. What's a non-traditional path as manager? For example, I got somebody that was be an assistant manager that had actually been a manager of one of the Seminole tribes. But when you looked into this person's background, what they were managing, the money, the politics in it, they were really well qualified. But we would never have thought of that, okay? So we will get non-traditional candidates, sometimes out of the private sector. We don't, because in today's world, sometimes it depends on what you're looking for. Sometimes the very best person you're looking for, depends on the council or the commission, might be somebody that has more private sector experience. And then in that case, it'll be dependent upon what kind of candidates apply.
Thank you.
Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you for the presentation.
I'm sorry I went over.
No, you're good, you're good. Yeah, you intrigued me, baggage for a manager. To some extent, they're all gonna have something. Especially if they did a good job.
Well, let me phrase it this way. It will not be unusual for me to have candidates in the large pool that have baggage in today's world.
So here's my question is, how do you thread the needle of determining what is acceptable baggage and what is not acceptable baggage to where, the character of the manager that you're gonna hire? That to me is gonna be one of the biggest challenges that you have, is the character of the person that you're gonna hire.
Right.
And so when you look at the baggage someone has, how do you reconcile baggage and character?
The best way for me to do it is two ways. Great question. Number one, it's you being honest to me when we have our conversation about what you really are interested in, what bothers you, what you wouldn't like, what you do like. See, a lot of commissioners or council people know, in some cases, more what they don't like. So I'll get a feel for what might be acceptable after I talk to all you. And here's the other thing. We will do the research to know what it is. I've been a manager long enough. I know what would fly with elected officials. I worked for almost 50 of them. I know what usually flies in the public sector in terms of what is acceptable. When I say baggage, I mean there are people that, because they are very ethical, got in trouble because, I knew one manager that we recruited. He got let go in a community because he told them, small community, and he said, well, you got to bid all this stuff out. Well, we don't bid that out. Joe's uncle gets that bid. He said, I'm not here anymore. Well, he had baggage because he was only there 6 months. But what kind of baggage is that? It's baggage that he wouldn't do what was unethical. So when I say, there's just more of this than you think anymore. And if you've been around, like as long as I had been around, there's no way you're not going to, if you're doing your job, you're not going to be quoted sometime in the newspaper. You're not going to get attacked. In most cases, you get attacked because of the position of the council. The council's telling the manager what to do. But then the council changes, they don't like that, or the citizens, or somebody. So my job is to really look in depth on, and I'll put it this way, I feel very comfortable that I can tell, not usually tell, I can tell whether this would be acceptable to my client after I've talked to all you. And different people have different perspectives on this. And I really get an interesting earful. One of my best parts of this job is talking to you privately.
Thank you.
Commissioner Martin.
Perhaps I missed it, and if I did, I apologize. Did MGT buy government HR or vice versa?
MGT is bigger than us, they bought us.
Okay, thank you. And would you define success? When you say that you've made a successful placement, what do you mean by success?
A couple of ways. When I hear back, which I do, from elected officials and staff, that this person was really good, when I see nothing in the news that's bad, okay? And also, one of the best ways of success is when those people call us and ask us to find them a public works director. They don't do that if you weren't successful. So 40% of our clients are repeat clients. That's how happy they are, and that they will use us again for a different service, maybe deputy manager or public works director or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, whoops, we can find it. Oh, do we get a moment to review the brochure before you send it out?
Right, you get more than a moment. You have to sign off on it and authorize it. Okay. And what we're really big is, I think you say, well, it really is important, the brochure, because it doesn't cost more to advertise across the country. And you'd be shocked at how many people in other parts of the country actually grew up and went to school here and are coming back, or they have family here. So you're getting them from, I placed one person from Yakima, Washington not long ago, one from Montana. So you're gonna see that, okay?
And let's see, do you rank the candidates that you present to us?
I don't, and I believe that's against Florida law. I'm real big about this. We do
Okay.
everything by alphabetical, so that if we bring you 3 people, they're not 1, 2, and 3, alphabetical. And why would I bring you people that are like that? And also, I'm a big believer that we're not supposed to influence who you pick. And so if we give you 3 people, they're 3 equals. So we'll do everything by alphabet.
Let's see, would you help with a job description? Where do you get involved in that?
Well, I'll give you an example. I'm doing the solid waste, executive director for the Solid Waste Authority for Broward County. They want me to recruit an executive director. They had no job description, no office, no salary, no staff. We did everything for them. I'm out advertising right now. We helped them with, what I did was I interviewed there, I had to interview a whole bunch of people that was on the, it's a 28-member board. And so they have about 11 members that are on the exec committee. I interviewed them all, okay? And I found out what they were really looking for. And then I have a lot of solid waste experience. And our company has so much material from all the placements we've done that I cobbed them together something based on everything they were looking for. And so now what they're going to do is they're going to take our brochure, and their attorneys told them they're going to make it the contract. Okay? Now they think they can do it without a job description. I still find that interesting, but we did that for them. I figured out, I worked out a deal for them on how they're going to house the person. I worked out a deal for them. They also could not pay any benefits at all. So we worked out how we can make that work for them in terms of salary, and I worked that out between everyone. So we took what even my company thought was an impossible situation, and they are very, very, we're actually out right now. They're very happy.
So as I understand it, you get involved in job description, contract negotiations.
Correct.
Okay.
I will tell you, during a big thing is when you interview all of you, and then you got to tell me whether there's any other stakeholders you want interviewed. That's when I can help with taking your existing job description, and you need to decide, because I'm used to where the council has to approve the job description. So one of the first things might be is that if we look at it and you tell me things that aren't in the job description or something needs changed, one of the first things you might want to do is change the job description right there before you. And so that helps come out of the discussion.
Okay. And last question, coastal versus mainland. We're pleased, I'm sure, that you have such a broad reach across the country, both traditional and non-traditional candidates. But do you see a difference in somebody who has dealt with a coastal community, whether it's Portland,
Right.
or whether it's, Florida, versus somebody who has not?
The easy answer is yes, but they brought me down from Dayton, Ohio.
I'm sorry, from?
Dayton, Ohio.
I thought so.
So we did not have an ocean, okay? Well, I inherited, but I had a lot of sand, but it was on golf courses. I will give you an example of how this works, okay? Is that I had a candidate here recently that a potential candidate, and for a job, and the whole thing was environment versus like the environmental issues we have here. This person was from Montana. The way he phrased it is the environmental issues he had was, he said when he got there, he had all the native people that were in Montana, okay, that were mad about the people that came because the river runs through it. And now he was dealing with all the people of the river runs through it people that hate all the people that are coming because of Yellowstone. So he really understood the environment and the political implications to that. So what I'm saying is, yes, you tend to have more, if somebody has coastal experience, they're going to be good at that, okay? But that doesn't necessarily always be the end all. You might find somebody else that has the same environmental, political issues, whether it be with mountain streams or with lakes or whatever, and you won't know to advertise and find out. And then, like in that case, I could apply this person to what the people want. They wanted an environmentalist. This person really was.
Thank you.
Jim, we've gone over what we said we'd do for 15 minutes. I've just got a couple of follow-up questions. And understand that you'll advertise this opportunity. But how many folks do you have in your corral today that you would start to cull through and look and whittle down to the number that you plan to give us? How big is your candidate pool for this particular job right now?
Potentially, it's the 9,500 people that are signed up with us, okay? And the other 7,000 that are on our blast. Those are all people that are public works or public employees that are looking. I would tell you, though, Interestingly enough, because people know that you've advertised for this, I already had 5 people call me.
Yeah.
Now, that would be really good candidates that said, Jim, if you get this job, remember me.
Right. Thank you. I know you have great spidey senses because you've been in this business longer than you've been recruiting for this business, so I got that part. Can you talk about, I didn't see in your written presentation or in your oral, do you have any mathematical metrics or analytic tools that you use? There are some in the industry that are standards across executive search firms. Do you use any of those tools to cull down your group to find out what their true skills are?
We do, but not in the sense that it's just a series of numbers. We have people, we look at certain metrics of how long somebody's been in a job, of what education they have. So we do put that together, and we do it for different ways for different clients. You got to watch that in Florida. Giving artificial numbers to people is you're starting to make distinctions between people that I'm not sure are really relevant or ethical under sunshine laws, especially when you're bringing people forward, because they're other people's analytics. So do we use some of those? Yes. Okay. But a lot of
Which tools do you use?
I don't know what you'd call them, what the tools are. A lot of it's done at the corporate office in terms of all the measurements that we do on education, things like that. I get those off the people.
Okay, appreciate that. Can you tell me, from what you know about having been a resident here for a while, having left Ponce Inlet,
Right.
what are the top 2 challenges you see that will face Mr. Rashadat's successor? The top 2 for New Smyrna.
I think dealing with your success. I think you have a community that is such a draw for so many people that in some ways you can get loved to death. I do think that's an issue for the community. And I know parking's an issue. That's going to be an issue. I'd say that's, to me, is probably is going to be your biggest issue, is keeping up with all the construction, all the things you have to do there in terms of the building department, all that. I know, because that's really important. But I do think just managing all the success, because you have so many people that want to come here, and you get gridlocked.
Very good. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time and all your answers and your presentation. We're delighted that you took the time to walk across the street and spend an hour with us. Thank you so very much.
It's really my pleasure, and you can't go wrong. You got 4 good firms. I think we're a little more uniquely qualified. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and good luck.
Thank you, sir. All righty, we've got some time to talk about that.
Theoretically, negative 2 minutes.
Say?
Theoretically, negative 3
Yeah,
minutes, right?
Right. Good on his feet, been in the business of managing much longer. I think Valley brought out that, hey, you've got 1,400 selections in 44 states. I personally would love to see 14,000 selections. He's a small boutique firm, and he's had a good amount of experience. I think his name is also in applications to be a city manager or county manager that are active right now. So I think I don't know if this is a sidelight for him, but he's also got his name out there for other things. And he says that all the firms, all 4 of them are good, so any of them would be just fine in his estimation. So other than his selection of a town near and dear to my heart, Apopka, Florida, where he's doing a search, I can't think of anything hugely distinguishing about his rap of continuous inside information. He's the ultimate inside information guy. He's been in the county a long time. I have a little bit of a worry that should we select him, and it sounds like he will be a hands-on guy, that's a good thing. And then his guy gets selected as a resident, there's a potential for conflict of interest. So I'll just leave it at that.
I wonder if he happens to be looking because MG, whatever it is, bought the existing.
Yeah, and he could be on the way out.
Well, you know, and by the way, he's not president, he's just a recruitment consultant. But anytime, as you well know, the bigger comes in and takes over the smaller, yeah, there's a change. And so that could indicate why he's also active, right?
For sure. Randy, what's your sense?
I thought the presentation was pretty poor, and certainly his handout is cheesy at best. I'm not impressed with that at all. He talks a lot in circles and relied a whole lot on his past experience, but if he was truly that good, I think he would still been here. There's a lot of reasons, that managers come and go. But I know that while he, in his later years as a county manager, there were issues on a countywide basis that, was kind of to do with him and some issues that he had. So, again, you're hiring somebody to hire somebody else. Everybody's going to use the same tools. Everybody's going to use the same search services. It's just, how do they get from A to B? I think the first two candidates truly have a plan on how they're going to get there, and their plan is kind of well-defined on how they're going to do that and what the process is going to be. He's number 3 on my list so far.
Valley?
I agree. I felt he was vague in his answers and he lacked successes. I didn't like that he only had 2 city manager placements, and one of those was the Lakeland city manager that had the presentation. So I thought that was ironic that the position he placed was for his competition. It concerned me that he's had 5 phone calls already for that position, and that makes me nervous that locals would be calling him for the job. I think we need to broaden our horizons and get somebody with a lot of experience. I didn't like that he said he would take somebody without experience. I think we're just in a situation where we need somebody that can hit the ground running, and to even think that if the other firm had 5,000 capable city managers looking, then why would we even consider that unless we just don't get good applicants? He could have done more research. I felt like he had to grab out of the air answers, but he's not my favorite.
Gotcha. Thank you. Jason, what do you think?
So I thought he did a pretty good job, actually, at answering a lot of the questions in the context of a local area. So I thought he was actually strong with that. It's a yin and yang thing. He's very local, and that can either be a tremendous benefit or not, as discussed. So, I think that without saying any more, obviously the feeling in the room is there's nothing more to really discuss there.
Got it. Yeah, thanks. So just looking at the three candidates, I'm perplexed. I'm hoping that, number 4 comes through with a totally different feel. Looking back now, Mr. Basinger, although I sadly characterize it as lower in energy, I liked his protocol. Mr. Thomas was the best salesperson I heard of today, and Mr. Deneen is maybe the most knowledgeable in how to do the city manager job, but lacks some experience. And I can echo I didn't think much of the written presentation, and the description of it didn't help much either. So I think we're at number 4. It's Mr. Slavin from Bob Slavin
Mayor, if I may
Company.
interrupt you.
Yes, ma'am.
As we've talked and we've gone through this process, I've gotten the impression that you would prefer to have discussion without the candidates in the room. There are 2 so far who have chosen to wait upstairs for your final.
For a decision, really.
For a decision and to listen to your final comments and be here if you wanted to ask any questions of them. Would you prefer that I ask them to go ahead and leave for the evening?
Boy, that's
Or-
an interesting opportunity. Thank you, Heather. I'm not sure how the rest of you feel as you think about it. I'll give you off the top of my head. I don't necessarily feel comfortable. It'd be like having a candidate in the room while we were discussing the city manager candidate, discussing their views. So I'm not necessarily in favor of having them back in the room.
And Mayor, my only comment to that is this is a public meeting.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it's recorded.
I would refer to Shay on how we proceed with that also.
I mean, it's a public meeting open to sunshine, so it's open to them.
Yeah,
They
sure.
can come in and listen, and they can sit in the room if they so choose.
Gotcha.
Just like they could listen to the recording of this. So this is a public meeting, especially as a committee, even choosing this. Our meeting that we had to get to the evaluation was public, and they could have listened to our comments then as well.
Not to make this too litigious, does that mean they could have listened to each other's comments if they so desired?
Yes, they could actually listen to it live if they wanted to upstairs.
No, I mean, they could have been in the room. I mean, we preferred, we asked them not to be here, so technically
they
they
could
could have
have
been
been.
here. Okay. How the rest of you feel about having them in while we do we'll throw them out and we'll discuss the last one. And then after that, then we'll have to do how we decide to do the straw vote, and which will be interesting because we haven't previously discussed that.
Is it up to us to choose whether they're in the room or not?
I mean, I think you have requested them to be upstairs, and so far they have obliged.
Yes.
But if they choose to be in the room, that will be up to them. If someone had chosen not to oblige, they could sit in here if they wanted to.
Usually it's a courtesy for these presenters, like not just in this, even sometimes when we have presentations for like an RFQ, the courtesy for the presenters that they would leave the room and do that, but they don't have to leave it, but they do that. So, and I think these firms, they did the same thing.
But we're talking about final discussion.
Yeah, I think that's what Heather indicated, that they have there are at least some that have interest in remaining and hearing the final discussions.
Yes.
They said that specifically?
Yes.
You want to hear their final discussion?
Yes, well, they have asked if they could stay for the final conversation. I asked them if they would please, while the other presenters were presenting, if they would return to our holding area that we have, and then they could come back during the last.
Which two want to come back?
Right now, number 2 and number 3, Doug Thomas and Jim Nanine have stayed.
Interesting. But Colin has left?
He did. He did tell me that you all have his cell phone number in his presentation, and he's happy to take any calls that you would want to make to him later to answer any calls.
Fascinating. Where does he live?
I don't know the answer to that.
Daytona Beach Shores? Yeah, so it's unlike, well, Jim could run home and just watch it on Granicus. I don't think that Colin would, it's not the same timing.
Yeah, well, I mean, as both Heather and Shay point out, this will be on the tape, and they'll be able to play it anytime, so everything we say is fair game. And so I'm not afraid of that so much. I just don't want any of us to feel like, we can't say what we want to say in the room at the moment because we've got an audience of the person that we're going to either select or not select. That was my only concern. But if you guys are unafraid, I'll play ball.
There's usually people who stick around during the final decision-making process. It's awkward,
Got it.
but a lot of what we do is awkward, so I wouldn't want to tell them they need to leave. tough.
So for number 2, like for example, I'm going to ask why he thought that that was the only time that ever happened, but you thought his performance was bad. I mean, I don't understand that, how that success rate can be so good, and he said that was the only time that's ever happened, so why?
Well, we're not going to be,
I think we're done. We don't get to ask him more questions. I think we're done
But
asking
see,
them
I didn't
questions.
know that until afterwards. So I still like them the best, but your comment made that go south for me. But I kind of like to know from him why.
Well, I don't think you can reopen that, but I understand your concern.
We don't have ballots, do we?
It's an open vote.
No.
And I can tell you that when you look on his information, so what I was trying to get to him was he doesn't have a lot of experience with managers. 5 out of 36 on his sheet. But if you look at his sheet, out of the recent ones, it was, I only saw that one TPO. And maybe the answer to that question is, maybe it was a unique situation because there's not a lot of TPO,
I think you're
managers.
interpreting it that
Did you see
differently
that?
than we are.
Yeah,
Yeah, the whole
that
page is
doesn't
sitting
make sense
Yeah.
of what you're saying,
Manager.
Jason.
And the
Okay.
second page was
Perfect.
repeat business.
Okay, so I got it.
Let him
Now I
in.
can see that page. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so to add some clarity, I think what we've agreed is we will not restrict Heather from saying you can go back in. Is it okay to say that our preference is that we able to discuss this and they can view the tape whenever they want? But if they insist to come in, we let them come in? Is that okay, Shay? I'm not outside the legal bounds.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
If Heather goes back up and says, hey, the commission would like to discuss it by themselves, but if you insist to go in, you have the right to go in.
Yeah, I mean, I would pretty much phrase it as, the commission's requested that you remain outside. However, it's a public record and it's a sunshine, so therefore you're more than welcome to come back in. Heather and I did talk about questions afterwards. There is no legal thing that's preventing you from doing follow-up questions. It's just whether you as the commission would like to do the follow-up questions. I think they were all told that they could remain and there could be potential questions, so those who chose to remain have the benefit of that.
Correct.
Yeah, that kind of puts Colin in a questionable position, doesn't it?
It does, because he elected to leave, sure.
Colin was given the option to remain upstairs.
No, I
also.
understand. He chose not to exercise that option. Again, that low energy that I think we were sensing at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, so in the meantime, let's call Mr. Slavin.
Okay. I've
and
asked
have
him to come downstairs as
Perfect.
soon as he's here.
And we'll at least start with him, then we'll have his question and answer session. We'll do our 10 minutes of discussing him, and then we will start with whatever process we invent to do the tabulation.
Trying to get the flow of how we were going to get them back and forth.
By the way, I just verifying, it seems to me that each of the presenters is the person who would head our search.
And that's what in the literature, that's what they said, I will do this, I will be the.
Well, that's why I was thinking about teams versus single presenters. And this is sort of, shall we say, more intimate, that we're dealing directly
Yeah.
with the person.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
Mr. Slavin, good evening. I'm assuming that's Ms. Lipscomb. Good evening, Barbara. Thank you for attending and giving us your time and your full attention. As the managing consulting of Slavin Management Consultants, we're delighted to have you here, and we're anxious to hear your presentation. We're going to give 15 minutes, if that's all right, of your time to give whatever you want to tell us, and then we'd like to ask you some questions for about 15 minutes as well.
Probably won't take 15 minutes, so the sooner we get into Q&A, the happier I am, because I know we're talking about what you want to talk about. But Slavin Management Consultants is a company I started, in the early 90s, because I really wanted I left local government years ago in order to be a search consultant. And there were several times in my career where I was working for other companies that would have resulted in me having to run a search practice rather than doing the search work. And I've been passionate about doing the work myself for a long time. So that the company was formed around me and my strong desire to continue to do recruiting for local governments. And we've been very successful at that. In the time the company's been in business, we've done work for local governments and nonprofits in 46 of the 50 states, I believe, and have placed upwards of 900 executives in jurisdictions in those states. And not all city and county managers, but the department heads and executive directors for nonprofits and the like. So that's the basis for the company. It's based in Georgia, not because there was any great love for Georgia. I started my work in this field in California, but soon learned that if I was going to run a company that did work nationally, that I needed to be there in Chicago or Atlanta to be close to the airports. And at that time, I had a partner in Atlanta, and the decision was made easy to come there. So I've been there for about 30 years. And it does resolve a major issue that I had before moving there, and that is that I would have to travel 2 days to get to a client. And now from Atlanta, I can get to and from where I live to where I need to be pretty easily. Barbara is one of the folks who works with me. Barbara has been a city manager, an assistant city manager. She has a lot of Florida experience, and I had the privilege at one point of placing her in a city manager position in Greenville, North Carolina, and she was there 5 years, and after that retired and has been working with me almost ever since then, and she's a great asset. I assume that this works. We are specialists in this field. Our practice is exclusively for governments, usually cities or counties, and as I indicated earlier, we've worked all over the country. And we have affiliates in different parts of the country, and those affiliates are active in the business, and they provide us access to people that we might not otherwise have easy access to from all over the country. And the range is basically national. We have a strong affiliate in Arizona, Kentucky, who shares part of her time in the Northeast, in New England, North Carolina, and Atlanta. We also do a couple of other things, but mostly we do executive search. But the other things are management studies of various kinds, including class and compensation. In this particular proposal, I will manage it, but I will partner with Barbara. I manage it because my responsibility as president of the company is to be in charge of it. Barbara will share with me the responsibilities of the day-to-day practice. And I'd like to say, because it's absolutely true, when you see one of us, you probably will see both of us, but it doesn't make any difference which one of us you're talking to. We work together very, very closely. And again, a little bit more about Barbara. She's been a city manager here in Florida, in Castleberry. She was actually, for a long period of time, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, an assistant city manager in Gainesville, and during that time spent a lot of had a lot of responsibilities that the city manager otherwise had. And she's been with us since 2017. And the next slide shows the jurisdictions that we work for in Florida. There's quite a few of them, as you can see. Our process is designed around a criteria that you set, not anything that we pull off the shelf in Atlanta and bring to you. We're experts in this business. We work for jurisdictions of various kinds all over the country, as I indicated earlier. But the bottom line in our success is based on the fact that you set the criteria. We spend a lot of time with you at the beginning of the process, finding out what that criteria is. We'll want to visit with each of you. We'll want to visit with your staff. We'll want to visit with community stakeholders, and that experience will result in the drafting of a recruitment profile, which will be presented to you folks as in draft form for your thoughts and review, and we'll alter it based on your thoughts and suggestions, and then we'll get it back to you for approval. But once that's approved, that sets our marching orders. It becomes kind of a Bible that we don't that we follow it without any vying or at all. And if we have any problems finding what you're looking for, we'll let you know that, and we'll want to talk to you about that. But usually that does not happen. We utilize a variety of recruitment techniques, professional associations, women and minority professional associations. We advertise in professional journals. We use social networking. We use places like such as LinkedIn, particularly LinkedIn because it's government oriented. And we have a database of folks that we've built over the years, and that database doesn't necessarily produce finalist candidates so much as it provides us access to people that we may not have otherwise had access to. So process is thorough. We assist you throughout the process. We consider ourselves and you folks a team, and we need to have your attention to us when we need it. In other words, we need to have you make yourselves available to us, particularly at the beginning of the process. And then after the recruitment phase is over, when we've developed a cadre of what we call semi-finalist candidates, we'll want to come back and talk to you about them. And then at that point, it's critical for us to hear from you as to what your thoughts are about that group and which of those folks on that list you're most interested in. With that information, we begin to do background work, and we begin to develop a list of finalist candidates. And for us, that thank God COVID is a little bit behind us. But for that we include site visits to the candidates in their present work locations. And that's kind of something that I think is unique to us. We learn a lot when we visit a city manager or a potential city manager candidate at their work location. We're seeing them. Nobody knows why we're there but us. We're usually introduced as a consultant interested in that community, which is true, but we don't tell them. Nobody knows why we're interested in it. However, it's interesting to see how they interact with the people they work with on a day in and day out basis. It's interesting to see what happens when a city manager walks into a public works department unannounced. It's interesting to see how the staff responds to that unannounced visit, whether there's a professional relationship that's pretty obvious, or whether they snap to attention, or whether or not it looks like the folks have never seen the person before. So at any rate, it's enlightening. And again, what's going on in our mind is what you're saying you're looking for in terms of how the person does the job, not what they do so much as how they do it. I'm going to probably run out of time, and I want to make sure I'm not repeating myself. Typically, it takes 90 days from the time that you approve a recruitment profile to the time that you're interviewing candidates. That can be, and it used to be that the process took that much time. We are in a situation now where the field is very competitive. So instead of establishing firm final filing dates in order to make sure that we don't lose people while we're waiting for who apply early on by waiting for a final filing date, we'll want to create a process that allows us to talk to you as they come in. And if we see real talent early on, we don't want to wait 3 or 4 weeks for a final filing date and run the risk of losing them. So we'll want to work with you to accomplish that. And that has worked fairly well for us. So it's usually no longer than 90 days. We're available to begin the project soon, within the next couple of weeks. And that would be something that I think would allow the process to begin and work, and that schedule to begin. You know what the costs are. It's in the proposal that we sent you. And Barbara, do you have anything that you want to either add or correct me?
No, other than to say good evening, and thank you for having us here. I've worked for Bob since I retired around 2017, and off and on different projects. It depends on who the client is and what my interest is, since I'm already retired. But I think, have a pretty good professional relationship. I'm very excited about the opportunity here. One of my close friends was a former manager, I think, here, Pam Bragazio. And so I visited her here in the past, some years ago. That was before David passed. But very excited to meet you all, and willing to answer any questions or you may have.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate your time. We're going to give you this extra 3 minutes and some seconds on the question side, and that will help us get through this. Commissioner Perrine.
Thank you very much for being here tonight. You mentioned that with your final candidates that you do an extensive background check.
Yes, right.
And you also mentioned that you do some things kind of out of the box of what normal people do, like going into the workplace and observing behaviors. Let me ask this. Right now we have a lawsuit going on that is because of not our city, but there is a lawsuit going on that a recruiter didn't disclose that somebody was terminated from a job, and they brought those bad habits. I'm sure you've read about it.
Yes.
What do you do to make sure that behavior that was terminated is found out and also disclosed to us so that that doesn't happen again? And how do you go about that?
Well, a couple of responses to that. First of all, we administer a very, very extensive supplemental questionnaire to all of the candidates that we would put in as we formulate what we call that semifinalists. One of the questions, several of the questions that are in that questionnaire are what difficulties have you had? Have you ever been let go? If so, tell us about it. And other things like, have you applied for anything else? Are we competing with anybody? A lot of the questions are tied to your profile directly. In addition to that, we use a professional company, Sterling, and that does a lot of our background work. They dive deep into the person's background. We also do very extensive, in addition to the normal things like credit checks and driving record checks and educational verifications and credential verifications, and we do extensive reference checks, and we do that ourselves. So it's very unlikely anybody could get through all of that without and have something that in their background that we haven't found out about. That service we use is very, very good. It's not particularly cheap, but it's very, very good. And they also go into social media. So if they won't tell us what they find because they think they'd be maybe breaching confidentiality, but they will tell us if they find anything that we need to be aware of. So the answer to your question is that it could happen, but the chances of that happening are very slim, and it has not happened with us. So there have been people who've lied to us, and we've caught them. And once we work for you, we don't work for them. So it's the end of the relationship when they lied to us about anything.
I could see how someone could answer that question about not being terminated if they were asked to leave or if they quit and they knew the writing was on the wall. It's kind of hard to pinpoint that down to what would...
Well, there are times when it is difficult because there are times when people are let go. There's a relationship or a agreement breached that really is requires that both parties, the employer and the employee, not say anything about it. That's usually a red flag. And we try to get around that. We've been in the business a long time, and if that occurred at a particular location, we know other jurisdictions around there, and these folks, managers in different places are colleagues, and some of the people who work for us are their colleagues. So I don't know that, I'm not going to tell you it couldn't happen, but I will tell you it hasn't happened, and we're pretty sure that it won't happen.
Thank you. In working with the Florida city government bodies, what do you foresee as our biggest challenge with this position that we have open right now with you guys filling it?
Well, this competition I mentioned earlier is very stiff right now. The Florida open records public disclosure laws are wonderful in a lot of ways, but they do inhibit our ability to recruit people who are currently working and happy. We have a few techniques that allow us to build a candidate's background without putting themselves in the kind of jeopardy that would result if we. The way the laws work is if somebody submits a resume to us, hits our office in Georgia, that is automatically by Florida state law a public document here. But until we get that resume, and until that resume or something else that a person sends to us says the city of New Smyrna Beach on it, it's ours, not. So we can work with people for a long time and develop their candidacy, respond to any questions that they might have, provide information to them, maybe put them in touch with some of the people here who might tend to either support their interest and build it or not, and then tell them when we need the resume, and when we need it, then it's subject to public disclosure.
At the point that you receive the resume, it goes into public?
Not unless it's asked for, but the law is such that anything on our desk in Georgia is for a Florida public sector client is a public document here.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Hartman.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate it. In your presentation, you talk about a follow-up after the fact.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
We automatically follow up at 6 months and at 12 months just to make sure things are working. But we also have a provision in our proposal, which you may have seen, that honestly, surprisingly, very few clients take advantage of, where we will come back after the person's been here 30 days or more, usually a little bit more, and work with the commission and the manager to establish not goals for the city, but performance goals for that manager. The idea behind that is that it sets a situation where you and that person are on the same page in terms of what our expectations are, and you have basically a set of criteria that you both parties have agreed to. That is basically sets the criteria for first year performance evaluation. So we do that, and then we do check with you folks and with the candidate during the first year.
Do you also get involved in the negotiating the first contract?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of times you may find a candidate that maybe doesn't have a lot of years of experience, but may be a candidate. Are you open to that, or are you just looking for more senior people to fill those positions?
Well, we'll find that out. Well, we work for you, and you set the criteria. But getting back to something I said earlier, it's not. We all know what a city manager does, but it's how they do it that's going to make the difference between whether they're successful or not. And if somebody applies for the job that looks very, very promising, but let's say that we've said that we'd like to have 7 to 10 years of executive level experience in a local government, and this person has 4 or 5, but everything else kind of checks out in terms of the style and the way what they do and how they do it, then we'll want to talk to you about them. And you'll make that decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin?
First, I'm struck by the statement that we all know what a city manager does, and I'm not sure everybody would agree with that. Are you familiar, for example, with the type of government we have?
Yes, I am. And you will know what they do because we will build a recruitment profile and it will be very clear as to what they do. You probably have a job description, and if you don't, in essence, this recruitment profile will be one. So it does talk about what they do. And but again, we work for a lot of Florida cities, so yeah, we know what they do.
But there is a difference, you know, in some of the governments, strong cities.
Oh, absolutely. And we've worked for everything from charter cities to strong mayor forums to administrators to managers. So, and we'll want to know what that is. You have a charter here, and we'll want to look at that for one thing. But every city is different too. And when I said early on that we don't bring something off the shelf and bring it to you and say this is what you need. We need to know what the situation is here and what your expectation, you expect this process to generate, and how we're basically finding out how we're going to be evaluated. But not so much. That's not so important. As we like to leave the place with a client that's happy with us, and with a city manager who's happy with the decision that he or she made to come here. And one of the reasons that I love what I do is that we have, in my opinion at least, made a lot of communities better. I worked for a large firm, executive search firm, when I left local government. What I learned when we came, and what I liked about that, but I worked in local government practice for them. What I liked about the local government practice is there was an opportunity to really make a difference for a local community. It wasn't a case where the decision was made simply on the basis of dollars and cents and profit for the
Thank you.
companies.
Are you planning to do a brochure for distributing to prospective?
Yes. That is another name for the recruitment profile.
I see, okay. And how many finalists would you expect to bring us?
Well, I'd like to tell you, if you were asking that question to me 20 years ago, I'd tell you, finalists probably about five. If you were asking me how many people I would expect to apply, I would have told you 50 to 100. It'll probably be more like 30.
So you're expecting about 30 applicants and 5 that you would actually bring to us?
We would bring to you probably 10 semifinalists for you to choose 5 from.
Thank you.
Awesome. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Afternoon. Evening.
Evening, late evening. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for coming.
Our pleasure.
As Commissioner Hartman mentioned, when I read through the proposals, I was really impressed with the follow-up. I actually had not seen that. And that impressed me a lot. I hadn't.
Well, thank you for saying that.
And I like that feature. That is something that really stood out about your firm. The other thing is, you know, this paragraph where it says YSNM, that whole paragraph is very interesting and intriguing to me. And you refer to a critical path. And you also identify the fact that it's difficult for people who may want the job but are in a job. So to me, that whole dynamic of how you recruit people or find people who are in a spot, not necessarily looking, because obviously you don't necessarily want the unemployed ones. So let me ask you, what is your critical path search? What is that exactly?
Well, it's a very focused process, focused on what you folks tell us you're looking for, which we established, as I said earlier, at the beginning of the process. And we take that information to the market, and we target our outreach, recruitment, our advertising process to reach that outcome. But beyond that, we actually find people who meet the criteria, and we find that's the pick and shovel part. We'll know some, but we'll know some people who know others. And what we'll be asking is not whether this, presumably we're looking for a city manager, not whether this person is a capable city manager, but how do they function? How do they relate to the community? And this is a unique community, a gorgeous community. We got here early and we were impressed with how outstanding it is and how beautiful it is, and the texture, the texture of it. But so it's going to take a unique set of interests and maybe experiences, and you've got some economic development aspirations that a person probably will, I'm guessing a little bit, but you'd like to see some of that in the background, and certainly the tourism aspect of the city, which is kind of what. So I don't know exactly how to answer your question. Once you set the criteria, that becomes the critical path.
All right, thank you. One last question. Threading the needle between a manager that has baggage, which they all, to some extent, do. The turnover in the career is it's a nomadic lifestyle practically. How do you thread the needle between understanding what baggage is and then understanding a character problem or a character issue?
Well, you really have to look at the environment within which that baggage was created. If it was baggage created because of a political problem the candidate or the applicant had no control over, we'll try to get our hands around that and find out what happened. If it's baggage that resulted from misbehavior of the part of the manager that either resulted in some kind of a disturbance, a fight, or some kind of malfeasance in terms of financial impropriety, we'll find that out, and that makes us real suspicious.
So that's the key to it. In other words, finding that out and making sure they don't end up on a short list.
The thing, yes, you don't hire a search firm to find people that have that kind of baggage. But I appreciate your question, because there are a lot of people who have had problems in their career that were not their fault, and as a matter of fact, some of them that deserve a merit badge for what they did that caused them to be fired. So we'll try to sort that out, and at this progress meeting that I've talked about, where we're talking about semifinalist lists of 10 that you'll choose 5 from, we'll know about that. We'll want to talk to you about it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Slavin, thank you for your presentation. I enjoyed listening to it. A few questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Why did you bring Ms. Lipscomb here tonight?
Why? Because she'll be an intricate part of the team. She works with me, particularly in the Southeast, on all kinds of searches that we've done. She's outstanding. It won't take you long to figure that out. I've had clients tell me, in Florida, clients tell me, you don't have to come, just send her. She's the one that we want, and that makes me very proud.
Thank you very much. May I ask her a question?
No. Yes.
Ms. Lipscomb, based on what you know about our city and research you may have done in your relationship in the past, what do you see the top 2 challenges are for the next city manager for our city?
The top 2 challenges for your city, I think that what I would like to see you do is to define those for me, because I don't want to try to tell you something that is not relevant.
You've been around here in Castleberry.
I looked through your presentation and the materials you sent, and I think from what I understand of the Florida environment is that revenues and expenditures and budgeting and all of that is pretty much something that everybody is contending with. And I think from what I've seen, it's been many years since I've been here before, but we traveled the city a bit this afternoon, and looking around, it looks like you've done a great job with the tourist area, et cetera. I would like to know more about where you are in terms of your economic development and how you plan to transition as the state has capped revenues, and what you're looking for more so that we can target the talent that you need to come and make sure that we're bringing the right kinds of tools to you to do the job.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate your candor.
All right.
Thank you very much. Mr. Slavin, how many candidates at the executive level for city manager are in your stable today?
In our, I don't know how many are in our database. There are hundreds of them. But how many of those 100 would be interested in making a change, and how many of them would fit your needs would have to be determined. But we don't have a stable. We have presented candidates to more than one client, but we've also told candidates who were ideal for one client that they wouldn't work for in another place. So we're so focused on what you're looking for that, I don't know of anybody, I can't think of too many people who wouldn't call me back if I phoned them tomorrow. I get a phone call back, and some of those people are people I've told no to.
Appreciate that. What size, what kind of analytic tools of using metrics and numbers might you employ, or do you employ? I didn't see any of those in the presentation. And you know what I'm talking about for the numerics that are required to do job planning, et cetera.
We don't use them. We have, the closest we would come to that is some psychological testing of the candidates if you want that done. We could put them through, Myers-Briggs comes to mind or something like that, if you were interested in us doing it. But we have found that the most successful, the best way to anticipate what somebody's going to do, or is going to do, is look at what they have done and look at the environment within which they've done it, which adds to the value of the fact that we go to them. If you can duplicate that, and you can pretty much be assured that they're going to succeed here. And as an indication of the fact that our process is successful, our city manager and county manager placements are, the average tenure is over 8 years, and the average tenure for, nationally is like 5 years. So, and the other thing is, you'll notice that there's a 2-year guarantee on our work, and if anybody leaves here for any reason, including they die within the first 2 years, we'll have to charge you expenses, but we won't charge you a professional fee. We've honored that. In all the years we've been doing that, we've honored that 4 times, and only once because there was a performance problem. And that performance, in a particular instance, I insisted, because of some behavior that I couldn't believe could occur, I insisted on that with that client that they let that person go.
Got it. Thank you very much. One personal question, you don't have to answer it. Why'd you leave Korn Ferry?
Oh, well, that's been a long time ago. I left Korn Ferry. I liked working for Korn Ferry, but Korn Ferry was and it still is, a private sector search firm. They wanted, at that time, they wanted public sector practice, not because they thought it was profitable. In fact, they called it discount search. But what they wanted was, they realized there are a lot of very influential people on city councils and county boards around the country. And if we could get access to those people through the local government connections they had, that would be worthwhile. And most of the private sector work was confidential. Public sector work made local newspapers. I think they realized at some point in time that wasn't always a positive thing. But I left for an opportunity.
Got it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and your time and travel here tonight. We appreciate your candor and your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
If possible, I'd like to hear staff's opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Let's keep our process, and we'll do it ourselves this time for this guy, just like we did the others.
Yeah, right.
And then we'll ask staff for everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, same.
Perfect.
Good. You want to go first, Randy?
They're all pretty much saying the same thing, which is they're all gonna use what we tell them to use to look for somebody. They've all reached out to people. I know for a fact that they placed a fire chief in Orlando that was terminated in 2 years, but it wasn't because of anything they did, you know, because he misbehaved in a bar. So, I mean, it's like, you know, those kind of things will pop up all the time. I think that they truly put some thought in the process and how they are looking at things. I like that they have an array of companies or cities that they worked for before. So there's, you know, we're not looking for a city of 30,000 people, and that's because we're not going to be there in 10 years. So we need somebody who's going to be able to get us to that next period of time. I like that he brought the assistant with him. I mean, that means a lot, and it even means a lot that he has enough faith and confidence in her that he would bring her with him. And so I like that part of it.
Lisa, how do you feel?
Interestingly, I was struck by, he wasn't sure about her qualifications, but they were on her, or what she had done previously, but they were on her presentation. And while I was expecting her reason for being here to be her expertise in Florida, I didn't feel that. So I was more confused by her being there. And I didn't have the impression that she was his assistant so much as that she would be doing our search. And I thought that it was, in fact, said that, or would be the lead on it. So, and they came from Georgia, but I didn't have any sense of any research into us or Florida or, you know, oh, we got here at 3, I don't know, fast. And I didn't feel a connection. That's my overall.
I agree with Commissioner Martin. I just felt that they didn't do enough research. The answers were vague. And it's not my favorite.
Okay, good enough. Jason, batter up.
I don't think I have anything intelligent to add. You know, they were nice. They were kind of folksy. You know, this is not inconsistent with when you look and review search firms. This is, you know, Randy said, they all say the same thing for the most part. They follow their own criteria to pitch. You know, on paper, I will tell you that the first guy, the CB and A, when I looked at, you know, their information that they sent, really liked him. Wasn't impressed by his personality. I got a guy who threw an awesome sales pitch that I've done some work with. It went really bad. So, you know, you go down the list and it is what it is. It's the same pitch by everybody. There's more of a gut instinct or feeling. And I'm not hot on SGR for the obvious reason. Doesn't mean we should absolutely not use them. I think that we'll just muscle through this and see what bubbles to the surface. But
Great.
staff.
Thank you so much. Let me offer a couple of remarks, and we'll get a transition to a totally different thing. I like the folksiness of the Slavin pitch. I gave them. I like the fact that they'll go to the candidate's current job site to look in how they interact with others. I thought that was a distinguishing thing. They're going to go and watch them in their current job and make their own assessments. I like that. There's only two-person team to present. They give them great points for that. And unfortunately, I thought Ms. Lipscomb stumbled with the opportunity that we gave her to say, boom, I know some stuff about your town. So a little bit disappointed in that. But A, for him to bring a team. I like that he would speed up the 90 days before we start looking. He said, if it happens in less, we'll let it go faster. I love that. And I think that's it. I liked him. I liked him better than the fast pitch of Mr. Thomas. So that's kind of where I stand. I am dying to understand what the staff who were on the committee, how they feel today versus how they felt prior. And without objection, we'd like you guys to, each of you, to give us your analysis now that you have seen what you've seen. And whatever order you want to do it, or collectively, however you want to give it to us.
Shay's looking at me, so I'll kick it off.
We'll go this way.
Thanks for including staff. Thanks for including me in this process. It's interesting. The selection part of the RFP obviously is paper-based, and this definitely adds a needed element watching these presentations. I think when you remove the glossy packaging of the sales pitch, the thing that struck me that I kept waiting to hear was, the techniques that you're going to go after those applicants that typically wouldn't be available to traditional recruiting. Platforms like LinkedIn in today's age are extremely important. Like Commissioner Preen said, that could drive a large portion of qualified applicants that wouldn't even potentially be looking for a city manager position. So I was looking for a company that would, explain, we have our traditional recruiting, we have our newsletter, we have, things you subscribe to, but in addition, we have this platform of technology where we, bring in these additional candidates, and I think that's important. I think all of them are going to be able to come up with a list of qualified candidates for you because New Smyrna Beach is New Smyrna Beach. I think what I found most interesting was, the ability to narrow those candidates down to the 10 or 5 that you all need to make a decision is really not a secret sauce. It's going to be based on their internal processes, which is, of course, completely driven by the commission, as well as their interviews with staff and obviously our residents. So at the end of the day, this does become, who you all are most comfortable with having an honest conversation and relationship with to drive what it is that, you're hoping to see in the next city manager. So, I thought there'd be more analytics in reducing, we had one talking about 1,000 applicants and one talking about 30 applicants, but regardless, reducing that to 10, I thought there'd be a more of an analytical process in that, but it really does seem driven by what the commission sets forth in terms of what you all are looking for.
Yeah, could I interject? I was hoping that there's a core competency skill set that they would say, we know what the core, you guys are nice guys, but we really know what the core competency of a city manager is. We're not going to let you go down a bad path. Because if they just say, well, we're going to wait for you guys to tell us what you want, and we're going to give you what you want, I'm not afraid. We'll do all right, but I would have preferred them say, you need to pick off of this list over here because these guys all are already qualified. And so I think when we pick them, which one, I think we ought to go back and ask them, hey, we want your secret sauce, and we want now will you tell us what you're going to do? Or is it, back to, okay, well, you guys have to tell us, because, absent having college say, hey, make sure that they can do blah, 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 I'm not sure I know all those skills.
No, I think that reduction from, let's say, 100 to 10, I'd be concerned about not knowing those other 90 applicants, right, and looking at 10. So that, I think all 4 kind of, nobody really addressed that kind of interim, internal process, and maybe there's a reason for that, I don't know. But overall, I think, you're going to get what you need, which is a list of qualified applicants, whether, you're able to pick from that final list or you need to challenge that company to go back and bring you more, remains to be seen.
Did you see any secret sauce on any of the 9 that applied? Was that revealed to any of you from looking? Was that a criteria?
Their methodology was a criteria. I think I'm going to elaborate on your secret sauce analogy or example in that you can't make a sauce unless you know if someone's allergic to something. So I think they need the ingredients that you guys need to provide them. Do you like peanuts? Do you like this? Can you eat that? and they have a formula to put together. They just need, they can't talk to you right now. So until you pick that firm and they learn what you like and what you don't like and what, they really can't give you that answer. And I think we saw that across the board in every presentation. And we saw that even in the presentations that were on paper. I think the biggest thing that I saw putting the whole presentation together, what their paper presentation was and what their presentation here, I was still more swayed by SGR. That's their strategic government resource, just based on their whole presentation. And part of that was just based on the fact that I think he's more in tune with the way society has trended. He did talk about LinkedIn. He did talk about how more recruiting is done through social media. He seems to be more engaged into what people nowadays are looking for when they are possibly moving to different cities. And having the background as a city manager, I think, is very positive. On top of that, understanding the open government and being very frank with the people who are considering moving here about our sunshine laws and about our open government. I think he's going to be a little more direct. I understand everybody says he felt sales pitchy, but he seemed easy to talk to. I thought he was easy to engage with and be brought into his conversation. The last company did better than I originally thought based on paper, but at the same point in time, looking at their overall presentation, I thought the question, Mayor, that you presented to the assistant, she did kind of punt that back to you and didn't really provide much insight at that point in time. I also think their expenses, if you look at it, they do charge for travel. So one of the things is they're based out of Georgia, so it looked like they were charging for travel to come down here. So that's just something to consider, as you know that this is going to require a lot of time, a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion, and so that was an added disagreement in what I saw. The first group that came in, I did not get a good sense right away. Didn't seem interested, kind of seemed put off. He looked at his watch as soon as he walked in here, kind of seemed disinterested. And he did leave, which shows me he's a little more disinterested. And, you know, that's kind of my take on what I saw as an overall presentation.
You like the SGR best?
I did.
Yeah, Eric, you didn't tell us how you planned that.
Yeah, I like my seat in the back better. So, yes, I mean, aside from Commissioner McGurk's previous experience with the TPO process, I thought his presentation was the best. I think he has a better handle on exactly what Shay said, some of the needs of today's society and as it relates to recruiting and getting us a qualified pool before you even start, you know, reducing that to a list that you guys can consider.
Okay, HR expert, home run time.
Oh, well, it's interesting because I would have pretty much said, just in a different way, everything that Shay said. I had all the same, everything she said, I was sitting here shaking my head, yes, those are all the same thoughts that I had. I don't believe that they could sit here today in any presentation and tell you how they're going to go through and find exactly the person that you're looking for until they have a discussion with you. And I felt that from, you know, every time you ask that question, Mayor, my thought was, I never knew that until I talked to the managers. In my years of recruiting and working with managers, I would sit down. Today, I still go every time we have an opening and I sit down with the managers and I say, what are you looking for? What has worked in your previous people and what hasn't? And so I do think that you gave them a tough question that was difficult for them to answer, and that's why. I think that you'll find that whoever you choose is really going to sit and really quiz you on what you're looking for in a city manager as a group and as individuals. I think that's a good process that they're going to go through to really vet that out and get that information so that then when they do go and they look through their candidates, and they're going to have some internal things that they're going to look at based on the experience that you guys asked for, based on the education you asked for, based on where they're coming from, whether they know coastal information or only mainland information. I think they are going to have some things that it maybe aren't going to be specific metric analytics that you're speaking of, but they're going to be able to go through those candidates and do that so that they do present the best 10, 30, 20 candidates, however many it is, that will enable you all to narrow that down to those top candidates that you really want to put forward, and then have our community weigh in on what's going to happen. I felt like Shay also, in that I kind of changed my mind in how I ranked people on paper, or companies on paper, to when I met them and got to actually hear them present. I also ranked SGR fairly low on their presentation, but I really felt like that's going to be a company, and with Doug leading it, is going to be somebody who's going to come in and really look at what you guys are looking for and get that information, and is going to have some of those newer ways to go research, find us people, get us all the best candidates. I want your decision to be hard. We should have a tough decision. We should have so many people wanting to come here and be so well qualified that you guys have a tough decision. That's the best position we could be in. And I felt like they have more of a handle on using some of that newer technology and social media that everybody uses now to get those things out there. I did feel like also this last presenter, how do I say this? I got a feel that they're going to be very direct with you if you give them a direction and they think that you maybe are taking it in a wrong way. I think they'll be very direct with you and let you know, when you look at candidates, this is what you're going to see and that's what you won't. To me, that is that honesty, and that being able to be that upfront and candid with you is going to be something that's going to be valuable in you making your decision on who you choose to come here.
Did you change your mind from the time you first read these to now the conclusion? And where was your top seed?
So my top before the highest that I ranked was GovHR USA. In looking at their presentation, the background that Jim does have in Volusia County and New Smyrna, he highlighted that in the presentation a lot. And when I was reading that on paper, that meant a lot to me. As a citizen and as someone who works for the city, that did mean a lot to me as I was looking at it. And then with the presentation, I didn't feel that the presentation portrayed as much of him having the real knowledge of what we need for you all in what he presented.
Got it. And so you landed with SGR as well?
I did.
Got it. City Clerk, Kelly, what do you think?
Thank you.
College next, so go ahead. Tell us what you think, really.
Honestly, I liked number 2 and 4 because they both have city managers experience. I really liked when they said number 4 that it matters how they do it. I think that's paramount in searching for a city manager that has everything, that encompasses everything from setting strong boundaries to interpersonal relationship with staff and the community, as well as elected officials. So I really like that they said that, and I agree with Commissioner McGurk. I like the 6-month and the 1-year follow-up, and agree with Heather too. I think that they would be very direct in telling you exactly what you need. So I sort of like number 2, like number 4, tend to lean towards number 4.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Your input's important. Okay, Maestro, you hold the baton today, and we'll be handing it off. So we are anxious to hear what you have
Mayor,
to say.
it's kind of funny. I'm listening to the presentations, and it's kind of interesting. For all the interviews that I ever had, you always at the end you say, I would like to take one out of this one, and one out of this one, and one out of this one, and make one. I don't think this is anything difficult for the recruitment in terms of the process and in terms of finding someone. I think if we have the staff and we have the time, I think we would have done a good job, an excellent job. However, you have 4 qualified firms that any one of them could do the job. Now, look at, I think it was Colin, they did the search when they had Pam. And he brought a 3-ring binder in every candidate's full of information, news articles, videos, even some recommendations from some other agencies that the candidate work with. It was about this thick. So you will have information on each candidate. Now, I think all of them has mentioned for city managers, I would say probably 90% of them, they have some issues at some of the jobs that they have. And it doesn't mean that they were bad, but sometimes they will face issues, ethical issues, from where they wanted to follow rules, and they were on all the school in terms of whether the commission or the staff that they were there. So that creates a problem for a city manager in most cases. Now, SGR, Doug, I don't know him too personally, but I know from the FCCMA, he's well respected at the FCCMA. He goes and he does strategic planning for a lot of the commission. He was a city manager in Lakeland. I think out of the four, in terms of the experience for a city manager, if you're looking for a city manager, I think he will be the best. Now, having the bad experience with the TPO, I mean, it's going to happen with any company. But in terms of the energy and in terms of the product that you will have, I think probably they will probably be the best company. The third company, which is Jim Deneen, again, there's an experience there from a county manager standpoint. He hasn't been in that role with this firm that he is with for a long time, but obviously he has the experience that 43 years in terms of finding department heads and employees for whether the county or the city, I think of Dayton that he worked in. The last company, I think what Heather said, I think it hit the nail on the head. I mean, they're going to be direct. And the question that was asked to all of them from the mayor is, the two challenges. And what kind of candidate would you provide for us? Now, if I ask each one of you, you will get 5 different point of view of what city manager do you need. So for them to get the right candidate for you, I think they need to have that individual interviews with you. Again, it's the delivery that is going to be the most important thing. And so at the end of the day, it's going to fall in the commission's lap where you will have, I will bet you will have over 100 applicants. I would bet on that. City of Winter Springs, they have over 100 applicants, and they have issues. New Smyrna is well respected. When you go to the FCCMA and they hear New Smyrna, it's well respected and everybody likes it. So you will have over 100 applicants. I don't think there is an issue there. The issue is finding someone that will give you the delivery that you need. This town has a lot of citizens who are involved, and you need to find someone who respects the citizens, because I know that in the past there were some issues, and the respect was probably, I would say, the most thing that you will get out of anybody. So when they're bringing the candidates, 6 candidates, I'm sure they're qualified candidates. Now the question is personality. So if I wanted to pick someone, even when I pick, 50% of my selection would be into personality. So.
Thank you very much. Any questions from any commissioner for either the selection panel or either of the charter officers? Any follow-ups now that we've heard them?
Not really a question. I am struck by Slavin, who didn't seem to know what kind of a city we were, who thought that we all had identical definitions for city manager. I couldn't help but think, wouldn't he take that same attitude towards interviewing candidates? So we would have candidates that show up having done no research about us, not understanding, what kind of government we have. Why would we expect more of the candidate than we would expect of the search firm? Just a thought.
Interesting question. Very good. So at this time, I'd like to propose that we do a nomination process similar to what we do with our boards and panels. You had
Mayor,
something? Yes, ma'am.
May I interrupt real
Yep.
quick? Do we want to go ahead and allow the presenters to come back in if they would choose to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Without objection? Okay, yeah. Do I need to wait?
I don't think the discussion needs to wait. They could just come in as they come down.
Okay, we've done a bunch of cussing and discussing. We're probably going to get to the nominating and voting relatively soon.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable with that. Kelly has done before where you nominate and then we go through and do who got the most out of the group. So maybe since we have 4 candidates to nominate, is there a nomination for any of the 4 from any of the 5 of us? Anybody like to
I'll go
nominate?
ahead with SGR.
There's 1 nomination for SGR. Is there any other nominations?
One for Slayton.
1 for Slavin. Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right. So I feel comfortable as well with that. And those are 2 great ones. And so because this is all public, we can kind of go down and I don't think we have to be unanimous, but we've got to be a majority. And so, what do you, Madam City Clerk, what do you prefer, or Madam City Attorney, what do you want to do in terms of this? Do you want something, do you want it oral, or do you want it written? How do you want it?
I don't know, do you have ballots?
I do not have
Okay.
ballots. I can,
No, that would
somebody can make a motion.
Well,
with
we got,
those
yeah, we.
They would just have to be kind of like, I don't know how you do it for the boards, but do they have names on it? We just have to be, we'd have to be able to track the ballots
We've got the
back.
stickies, we can just write, you can write your vote on there, and Kelly can tabulate them. How's that feel?
Yeah, that would be easy.
All right.
Between the 2.
Suitable to you, ma'am.
We just got to keep them.
Each of us.
Like,
You have to have a special file for those stickies,
yeah,
right?
put your name and vote. I guess.
Well said.
If you could pick one of the 2 nominations and then put your initials underneath it, so
Yes,
when
ma'am.
I read the roll
So you
call.
have
There we go. That works for me.
You're so busy handing out, you're not finished yet. No? Oh, Valley and I are the only 2 finished ones?
And Kelly.
The drama.
I know.
All right, I have the results. There were 2 nominations, 1 for SGR, 1 for Slavin. 4 out of 5 of the commissioners, of the elected officials, cast a vote for SGR, and 1 cast a vote for Slavin.
Very good. Thank you very much. So the majority has SGR as the selection. That will be reflected in the record. Thank the commissioners for sure, the staff for doing the legwork to get us to this point, and certainly each of you who are here representing your firms for taking the time and the effort for getting us a presentation that we appreciated to examine thoroughly. Appreciate that. The firm of SGR has been selected. Congratulations. The city HR manager will be in touch for sure, HR director. Are there any comments from any of the commissioners? I'll start with the vice mayor.
Thank all of you for driving here from another state and from, even if you're not too far, we appreciate you taking the time and research. And for SGR, your research knocked it out of the park for me. And I anticipate that the amount of time you put in researching us, that you'll do the same for our candidates. Thank you.
Commissioner Martin.
Again, echoing, I appreciate all the time and effort that goes into coming here and making these presentations for us. And I hope we'll be getting, setting up meetings with Doug in the next week. We're all ready to go and move forward on this, so look forward to seeing you again soon.
Commissioner McGurk.
Thankful for everyone who applied, put the applications in, and Doug, will look forward to riding that ship.
Mr. Hartman.
So, yes, again, thank you all for showing up in your presentations, both in the original RFP and even tonight. It truly was a hard decision, I think, for all of us. There were little nuances for each and every one of you that kind of led to my final decision. And you actually taught me something, so I appreciate that. You know, there is no formula for a city manager. It's kind of going to be what the five of us want. And each of you brought that to us. I think that was something that I hadn't thought of before. And so I certainly appreciate that. You've given me some homework to do over the next couple of days. So I'm not thankful for that. But, you know, every one of you did an excellent job. And it's such a hard decision to make, you know, when there was 4 outstanding people. But eventually, you know, there are winners and losers. So thank you very much.
Ms. Lipscomb and gentlemen, thank you for coming and for all the preparation that was involved. We have commented to one another in great detail about all the things we liked and all the things we thought could have been different. If you want any individual feedback, I'm sure it'll be available. This decision that we will eventually make with your help, sir, will be the biggest decision that this commission will make and will have decades of impact. And so we take this very seriously. We're delighted that you took it very seriously and took all the time and effort in putting together your very best to try to assist us in the public good. This is a measured approach. We hope to take a measured approach in finding the successor. I won't say replacement. I'm not sure Mr. Rashadat can be replaced, but we'll find a successor in the days and months ahead. Thank you very, very much. Without further discussion, we're adjourned.